Chapter 894. Yun Jian's words seemed to cause an uproar in Gu Xian's ears. What did she mean by his sports car being modified to the point of being unsightly? Gu Xian was an upright man. He thought of something and asked on the spot, "What do you mean by my sports car being modified to the point of being unsightly?" As Gu Xian spoke, he had already followed Yun Jian's words and ran aggressively to his sports car. He circled his car left and right before shouting at Yun Jian, "My car is a famous car personally modified by America's top mechanic, Master Corentin. How can it be unsightly?" The Master Corentin that Gu Xian mentioned was a top mechanic in America. Even in the entire mechanic industry, Corentin was a well-known figure. Legend had it that it was very difficult to get Corentin to modify something. This was because even money wasn't tempting enough to get Corentin to modify something. One had to be someone with international status to be qualified to negotiate with Corentin. The sports car in Gu Xian's hands was bought from someone else. Therefore Gu Xian cherished this sports car very much. To Gu Xian, owning this sports car was even more exciting than getting Corentin's autograph. Moreover, Corentin enjoyed a certain amount of international authority. Gu Xian had no doubts about Corentin at all. But today Yun Jian actually said in front of him that Corentin's modified works were unsightly? Didn't she know? International racers all wanted Corentin to modify a sports car for them, but the number of people who could actually be modified by Corentin could be counted on one's fingers. Didn't she know that if her words were heard by some people with ulterior motives, it would cause public outrage? Yun Jian heard Gu Xian's indignant voice, but Yun Jian only raised her eyebrows slightly when she heard Gu Xian's words. Seeing Yun Jian's reaction, Gu Xian thought that Yun Jian had heard of Corentin's name. Gu Xian was also a person who cared about his reputation. He thought that Yun Jian was dumbfounded by his words, so he raised his head somewhat arrogantly. Look, his car was modified by Master Corentin. Yun Jian would probably admire him for being able to get a sports car modified by Master Corentin after hearing that. Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian with his mouth slightly agape. Gu Xian looked forward to seeing Yun Jian look at him with admiration or envy. However, what Gu Xian saw was Yun Jian's eyelids flashing and her eyebrows slightly raised. Then he heard Yun Jian say, "So it's a sports car modified by that old man Corentin? This car is probably the trashiest of all his modified sports cars." Yun Jian made a tsk sound as she spoke. Gu Xian was completely stunned when he heard Yun Jian's words. Yun Jian's way of addressing him? Plus Yun Jian's words. You know Master Corentin?" Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. Corentin was an eccentric person. It was said that there were very few people who could get close to him internationally. Gu Xian only heard of one person who was very close to Corentin. Hearing Yun Jian call Corentin an old man, why did it feel like she knew Corentin? Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian with great anticipation. She actually knew Master Corentin. However, he heard Yun Jian's soft voice. Just a defeated opponent. Chapter 895. Yun Jian's tone was ostentatious, but there was an arrogance that could not be ignored. However, for some reason Gu Xian did not think that Yun Jian was joking. "Master Corentin was defeated by you? Are you sure?" Gu Xian exclaimed. After that, Gu Xian asked again to confirm. "Don't tell me you don't know who Master Corentin is? He's the best mechanic in the world. Whether it's a sports car or any other mechanical equipment, there's nothing he doesn't know how to do as long as it's unheard of. I don't mean to criticize you, but you haven't even met Master Corentin before, have you? Why would you say that Master Corentin was defeated by you?" Gu Xian exclaimed in surprise. Yun Jian did not follow Gu Xian's words. Instead, she changed the topic and asked Gu Xian, "Do you admire Corentin a lot?" After being asked by Gu Xian indeed changed the topic. "We race car enthusiasts admire him a lot because the cars he modified are twice as fast as ordinary sports cars and race cars." Gu Xian looked into the distance in admiration and said. If Gu Xian looked down on Yun Jian before, then at least Gu Xian knew that Yun Jian knew about racing. After all, if it was someone who did not know about racing, they would definitely not be able to tell that his sports car had been modified. Therefore Gu Xian and Yun Jian started chatting unknowingly. He even said in a regretful tone, "Sigh, if I can get Master Corentin to modify another Maserati sports car for me, I'll have no regrets." Gu Xian's tone carried a hint of a sigh. Everyone knew that Corentin was an eccentric old man. He would not help you modify a sports car even if you paid for it. Unless you made him happy, he would modify it for free. Gu Xian's sports car had been in the hands of many people. By the time he got his hands on it, it was already an old car that had been driven by many people. However, this was a car modified by Master Corentin, so Gu Xian would rather drive this old car than replace it. Yun Jian stood where she was and cast a sidelong glance at Guxian as she continued, "As long as you get the Maserati modified by Corentin, you'll be more respectful to my mother?" Yun Jian knew that Qin Yiru didn't want Guxian to disappear. Qin Yiru was kind-hearted, and Guxian was not a bad person. That was why Yun Jian negotiated with Guxian. This was the third time he heard Yun Jian negotiate with him, and it was all for Qin Yiru. Guxian blinked. He didn't directly answer Yun Jian's question. Instead, he asked Yun Jian somewhat enviously, "You and your mother must have a good relationship, right?" In Guxian's impression, his mother would only dress up gorgeously and fool around, only coming home in the middle of the night. His mother had never cared about him. Yes. Yun Jian nodded. Guxian's red, yellow, blue and green hair didn't match his somewhat lonely image at all. That's great. Guxian sighed deeply. The envy in his tone didn't diminish at all. As Guxian spoke, he walked away somewhat dejectedly. This time Yun Jian didn't stop Guxian. After taking 2 steps, Guxian turned his head to look at Yun Jian. He chuckled, but this laugh wasn't at Yun Jian but at himself, who was lonely. "I won't scold your mother anymore." As Guxian walked, he lowered his head and continued, "Master Corentin is an internationally famous big shot. Until now, no one has been able to invite him. The only person who could possibly invite Master Corentin couldn't possibly be Yun Jian." Chapter 896. Guxian felt that since he was already so lonely, there was no need for him to make others feel the same way. Besides, Qin Yiru had rushed over so early in the morning to make breakfast for him. It was impossible for Guxian not to be touched. After all, even Guxian's own mother had never cooked for him. Guxian also found a bit of motherly love from Qin Yiru. "So you don't have to think of a way to hire Master Corentin," said Guxian. With that, he laughed self-deprecatingly and turned to get into his sports car. Then he started the engine and stepped on the gas pedal to leave. It was not that Guxian looked down on Yun Jian, but because Corentin was an internationally famous big shot. Moreover, Corentin was a weirdo in the mechanical world. If you wanted to hire him, you couldn't use money. He would only do it if he liked the person. Moreover, out of 1,000 people, there wasn't a single person that he liked. Therefore, Guxian was not looking down on Yun Jian's words, but he instinctively did not believe her. In the end, Yun Jian was still standing in the same spot when Guxian drove away. Yun Jian stood in the same spot and smiled slightly. After a while, she took out her phone from her trouser pocket and dialed a number that she remembered in her mind but had never taken the initiative to call. Beep beep beep. After 3 rings, the call did not go through. The ringtone rang for almost half a minute. Just as the ringtone was about to end, the call was suddenly picked up. "Hello." A very lazy, old man's voice in pure English came from Yun Jian's phone. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She knew that this phone number was Corentin's private landline. Most people did not have Corentin's private landline number. "Old man, please do me a favor," Yun Jian spoke into the phone in English very decisively. "How dare you call this old man an old man? Who are you, little girl?" Corentin was annoyed when he heard Yun Jian's address. He immediately opened his mouth angrily. Even through the phone, Yun Jian could feel that the other party was holding a landline with a childish expression. He was frowning at the landline and pretending to be angry. "Oh, Yun Jian paused in the middle of her words, then she softly spat out a letter. After Yun Jian spat out the letter, she clearly heard the sound of a chair being flipped over from the other end of the phone. On the other end of the line, when Corentin heard the word SS, he wanted to stand, but unexpectedly, his leg exerted force and hooked onto his own chair. The chair was hooked and was accidentally kicked over by his own foot. Corentin fell to the ground along with the chair. However, the pain to him, the word SS. Corentin got up from the floor and crawled to the phone he had accidentally flung away at the fastest speed in his life. He trembled as he picked up the phone. Then, he used the most benevolent voice he could muster and said, Why are you calling me? No, are you planning to take me in as your disciple?" Yun Jian had never called Corentin on her own accord. The reason Corentin believed that Yun Jian was SS, just because of what she said, was because other than this unknown number, the people who knew his number were all people he knew. Of course, Corentin had saved the phone number of someone he knew. "Country Zhejiang Province's Longmen City. Call me back when you've arrived." "I won't wait for you if you're late," Yun Jian said with a faint smile. SS was the abbreviation for her by the people in the underworld. Chapter 897. Yun Jian did not give a direct reply to Corentin's words. Instead, it was Corentin who sounded flattered. "All right." No, I'll fly my private helicopter over tonight." "Wait for me, you must wait for me." Yun Jian pressed her lips together lightly and hung up. Not many people knew that she was slaying God, the top secret agent in the secret agent ranking. Even international tycoons and top figures rarely knew about her identity. Knowing Corentin under the identity of slaying God had a history as well. Yun Jian had thought that she would not need Corentin's private number when he had forced it on her, but she did not expect to use it so soon. It was fortunate that she had memorized Corentin's number when she saw it back then. Otherwise she would not have been able to reach him. After making the call to Corentin, Yun Jian turned to enter Gu Yunjian's villa. Yun Jian headed to New Cruise after meeting up with Qin Yiru. Recently, New Cruise had been planning to expand the company to all major regions in the country through franchising. Of course, New Cruise's headquarters was in Longmen City and this would not change. What was franchising? It was when a brand was established, selling their products to the entire country by collecting franchising fees. Those who applied for franchising had to follow the headquarters in the renovation of their storefronts and the management model. New Cruise was still planning this, so Yun Jian had been visiting the company more frequently recently. There were some things that Zhang Jifan could not do, so Yun Jian had to do it herself. It was Saturday night. Yun Jian had promised Chen Sini to have dinner at her house and she would not go back on her word. Moreover, Yun Jian wanted to check on Chen Sini's condition. Yun Jian had gone to Zhang Xiaofeng's house the last time. She had also arranged to meet Zhang Xiaofeng at his doorstep. After Yun Jian was done with New Cruise's matters, she went straight to Zhang Xiaofeng's house. Zhang Xiaofeng had been waiting for Yun Jian at his doorstep for quite some time. It was only when a silhouette came from afar that he waved frantically. "Master." When Yun Jian heard the greeting, she knew it must be Zhang Xiaofeng without thinking. Hence, Yun Jian went to Zhang Xiaofeng. Beside Zhang Xiaofeng was a chubby Zhang Jian. Zhang Jian was rubbing his head as he greeted Yun Jian cutely, "Grand Master." Yun Jian grinned and said, "Let's go." Zhang Jian had carried Chen Sini to the hospital and was considered to have saved her life. Hence, he was naturally invited to Chen Sini's house for dinner. In reality, Chen Sini's father, Chen Zhenchuan, had not only invited Yun Jian and the rest. Chen Sini had just recovered from a serious illness while Chen Zhenchuan was a businessman. A businessman should know how to do business. This kind of thing could be used as a pretext to invite some of his business partners over for a meal and talk about business, which was very good. Hence, when Zhang Xiaofeng brought Yun Jian and the rest to Chen Sini's house, they saw a few tables of food. Chen Sini's leg was not injured to begin with, so she could walk normally. Chen Sini's face was only slightly pale due to excessive blood loss. The most important thing for Chen Sini now was to replenish her blood composition. Yun Jian and the rest walked into the house and saw Chen Sini sitting at one of the tables, looking a little unhappy. In addition to Chen Sini, there were several other young men and women around the same age as Chen Sini sitting at the table. However, Yun Jian did not know any of them. Chapter 898. Yun Jian heard Chen Sini's shouts once she entered and saw Chen Sini waving at her, beckoning her over. "Looks like we're late. The dishes are almost all here." Zhang Xiaofeng lamented before he headed over with Yun Jian and Zhang Jian. "We're not late at all. It's fine as long as there's food." Zhang Jian added gluttonously as they walked. In return, Zhang Xiaofeng rolled his eyes and smacked him from top to bottom. "Look at you, you're so useless." As Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian spoke, both of them followed behind Yun Jian. "Jian, I've snatched this seat especially for you. Come over quickly." Seeing Yun Jian coming over, Chen Sini waved her hand quickly as if she was afraid that the seat she had snatched would be snatched away by someone else. "Tsk, you heartless Chen Sini. You didn't even snatch a seat for us." Zhang Xiaofeng teased. Then the group sat down. There was a group of people sitting at the tables next to them. Only Yun Jian's table was filled with children. In reality, this was how it was usually arranged. The adults sat with the adults while the children sat with the children. Sometimes the children's table would have their mothers with them. Yun Jian glanced around her table and saw that there were a few women at the same table as her. Of course, most of them were young men and women. It was not hard to tell that some of them were brought here by their mothers to attend the dinner. Be it the children or the women, they must have come with their fathers or husbands. Their fathers or husbands were also seated at the same table as Chen Sini's father, Chen Zhenchuan. Seeing Yun Jian and her friends coming over, Chen Zhenchuan, who was seated at the same table as himself, stood up. In any case, he would not forget that he was treating his daughter today because she had just recovered from a serious illness. Chen Zhenchuan would never forget that the reason why his daughter could stand here alive was because Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian had saved her in time. "You guys are here?" Chen Zhenchuan walked over to Yun Jian and the others with a wine glass in his hand. Yun Jian could tell that Qin Jinchuan's question was directed at her, so she nodded in response. Sorry for the inconvenience, haha. Qin Jinchuan laughed twice and then continued to speak to Yun Jian. Thank you very much. Cinny, you have to entertain your friends on my behalf. Qin Jinchuan said with a smile. Got it, Dad. Qin Cinny nodded. Jinchuan, is this your Cinny? Because Qin Jinchuan walked over, everyone's gaze turned towards him. At this moment, at the same table as Yun Jian and the others, a woman in her 40s with a twisted face asked Qin Jinchuan. Obviously this woman knew Qin Jinchuan. Haha, that's right, this is my Cinny. Qin Jinchuan said this and laughed twice. Jinchuan, I heard that Baiguang Model Agency has been banned from the industry. Also, the genitals of those talent scouts have been cut off. One of them even had 2 fingers chopped off. Did you do this, huh? A man seemed to want to show off, so he used this matter as a topic to bring it up again. Qin Jinchuan was stunned, and then he replied, I didn't do it. I can't say for sure that Baiguang Model Agency was banned, but those talent scouts' genitals were cut off. I heard that a few girls who escaped said that a young girl chopped off 2 fingers of one of the talent scouts and ordered people to cut off their genitals. I don't know if this is true. Someone added. Master, I remember that you were the last to leave. Did you do that? Zhang Xiaofeng heard the noise and asked Yun Jian. Chapter 899. Originally Yun Jian didn't stand out when she sat there. Although Yun Jian looked exquisite when she walked in, the boys and girls at the same table stared at her for a while. Everyone just stared at her for a while and then fell silent. The people at the same table as Yun Jian, Chen Xinyi, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian were all boys and girls around the same age as Yun Jian, except for the woman with a twisted face. Most of the boys and girls in their youth would be attracted to boys and girls around the same age as them. Therefore, the boys and girls at the same table also looked at Yun Jian for a while. However, they didn't pay much attention to it. But now that Zhang Xiaofeng mentioned it, everyone turned their attention to Yun Jian. When Yun Jian went to the hospital to visit Chen Xinyi, she also brought up this topic. However, the topic at that time wasn't about this, but about the ban of Baiguang Model Agency. Last time, Zhang Xiaofeng also asked Yun Jian if Yun Jian was behind the ban of Baiguang Model Agency. At that time Yun Jian nodded and admitted it. However, the man with a beer belly stood out and laughed, saying that Yun Jian was just trying to take credit in front of Qin Jinchuan. The man with a beer belly was called Zhang Guodong. He was just an ordinary worker, but because he was Qin Jinchuan's relative, he rushed over to visit Qin Xinyi when he heard that Qin Xinyi was in trouble at the hospital. He was purely there to flatter Qin Jinchuan because Qin Jinchuan was the big boss of the company. It was just that he had thought of Yun Jian as such a person back then. And at today's banquet, the man with a beer belly named Zhang Guodong was also present. However, Zhang Guodong's presence wasn't invited by Qin Jinchuan. He came uninvited. Last time at the hospital, he heard that Qin Jinchuan was going to treat Yun Jian to dinner this Saturday night. How could a greedy person like Zhang Guodong not come? Therefore he was also present now. However, when Zhang Guodong saw that Yun Jian had once again attracted everyone's attention, and the reason was the same as last time, he laughed out loud on the spot. Little girl, are you really not going to change? Last time, when we were talking about Baiguang Model Agency being banned, you said you were the one who did it. Today we're talking about those talent scouts. Are you going to admit it again? Zhang Guodong asked Yun Jian proudly. Last time it was almost the same. He was discussing this matter with someone. Zhang Xiaofeng said that Yun Jian did it, and Yun Jian also admitted it. However, this time, it was someone else who told Qin Jinchuan about the latest information they had obtained. Last time, they did not know that the talent scouts were crippled and one of them even had his hand chopped off. Today, the tragic incident of the talent scouts had spread all over Longmen City. Now that it was brought up again, Zhang Xiaofeng was accusing Yun Jian again? Zhang Guodong thought that Yun Jian was using her disciple, Zhang Xiaofeng, to gain Qin Jinchuan's favor. Zhang Guodong wanted to gain Qin Jinchuan's favor, so he assumed that Yun Jian was that kind of person as well. Therefore his tone was not exactly friendly. As if to prove his point, Zhang Guodong took the liberty to say to Yun Jian again, if you're really behind what happened to those talent scouts, why didn't you say so last time? I'm sure she didn't do it. Zhang Guodong's analysis sounded logical. Chapter 900. Ever since Yun Jian had appeared, she had always given people the impression that she was a woman of few words. Therefore, when Zhang Guodong pointed at Yun Jian and Yun Jian retorted in such a tone, everyone present felt a sudden sense of novelty. However, before everyone could react, Yun Jian's words drifted over again. Are you my biological mother or my biological father? Why should I report these things to you? Besides, Would you believe me if I told you? Yun Jian's words had hit the nail on the head. First, who was Zhang Guodong? Who was he to her? Why should she report her own matters to him? Second, would he believe her if she told him? The answer was no. Besides, Zhang Guodong himself had said that last time when they were talking about the Baiguang model agency being banned, Yun Jian had said that she was the one who did it. However, from Zhang Guodong's tone just now, everyone present could tell that he definitely didn't believe Yun Jian. Yun Jian's few words had made Zhang Guodong speechless. Zhang Guodong's spirit had been completely destroyed by Yun Jian's sharp words, but he still held back his anger and planned to find a chance to fiercely retaliate against Yun Jian next time. Alright, stop talking. Let's eat. Chen Zhenchuan saw that the situation wasn't right, so he immediately tried to mediate. After all, he was the one who invited Yun Jian and Zhang Guodong to dinner. His original intention was to repay Yun Jian for saving Chen Sini's life. However, if Yun Jian quarreled with Zhang Guodong, wouldn't it become a bad thing instead of repaying her kindness? Under such circumstances, Chen Zhenchuan naturally had to step in and stop them. Here it comes. The last dish is here. Everyone try it. These dishes were all made by me. At this moment, Chen Sini's mother, Hixia, walked out of the kitchen. Hixia was followed by several nannies. At this moment, the nannies were serving dishes to each table. Tonight's dinner was prepared by Hixia. Although Hixia looked like a well-bred young lady, she had actually learned how to cook. The dishes she made were comparable to the chefs of four-star hotels. However, after Hixia married Chen Zhenchuan and gave birth to Chen Sini, she rarely cooked. Today, Hixia cooked because she wanted to repay Yun Jian and the others with sincerity. My mom's cooking is delicious. Jian, eat it and ignore those lunatics. We'll eat our own food. Chen Sini had disliked Zhang Guodong for a long time. Hearing Zhang Guodong treat Yun Jian like this, she was not angry at all. That's right. Master, have a taste. Zhang Xiaofeng also shouted. Yes. Yun Jian smiled and nodded. At the same time, Zhang Jian, who was beside them, could not close his mouth. Just as Yun Jian finished 2 prawns, someone came through the door late. Upon closer inspection, it was Ling Yichen. Ling Yichen's father was a family friend of Chen Sini's father, so it was not unusual for a playboy like him to show up here. However, it had been a while since Ling Yichen had appeared in front of Yun Jian and her friends because he was preparing for a competition. In addition, Ling Yichen was not in the same class as Yun Jian and her friends, so Yun Jian had not seen him for a long time. Hey, you guys have already started eating. I'm late, ha. Ling Yichen said as he ran toward Yun Jian and her friends. You actually have time to spare? Zhang Xiaofeng wanted to tease everyone he met. Chapter 901. Haha, great beauty, Chen just got discharged today. How can I not do her the honor? Ling Yichen said as he walked up to Zhang Xiaofeng. Then he squeezed into Zhang Xiaofeng's side and snatched half of Zhang Xiaofeng's stool. F***CKU kid. Zhang Xiaofeng was very unhappy that half of his stool had been snatched away. He continued to shout, Kid, you snatched my stool the moment you arrived. Scram to the side. Go get your own stool. Ah. Ling Yichen laughed heartily. Then he turned to look at Yun Jian, who was sitting on his seat, and greeted, Hey Yun Jian, long time no see. Yun Jian replied with a simple smile. Ling Yichen? While Ling Yichen was happily fighting for a stool with Zhang Xiaofeng, a girl sitting at the same table looked at him and called out in surprise, Hey, you're a Mr. Ling. Who was calling him? Ling Yichen turned his head around impatiently. However, when he saw the girl's face clearly, he was completely dumbfounded. Shasha? Ling Yichen asked in surprise. This time Zhang Xiaofeng was interested. He lifted his butt and took the opportunity to push Ling Yichen, who was snatching his seat, out of his stool. Because Ling Yichen was stunned just now, he was directly pushed out of half of his stool by Zhang Xiaofeng. Seeing that Ling Yichen and this girl called Shasha had acknowledged each other, Yun Jian was not at all interested. She continued to peel the prawns in her hands. These prawns were delicious. Ling Yichen did not expect to bump into Shasha here at all. He was a little stunned. This girl called Shasha was called Ji Shasha. She was Ling Yichen's ex-girlfriend. Speaking of Ling Yichen's love affairs, he really had a lot of them. He was the famous playboy in school. Before this, he changed girlfriends like he changed clothes. However, after meeting Yun Jian and the others, he completely restrained his temper. Right now, the school was abuzz with rumors that Ling Yichen had actually curbed his playful personality. This was simply untrue. The thing Ling Yichen was most afraid of right now was meeting his ex-girlfriends. Coincidentally, he actually met one today. While Ling Yichen was still in a daze, The boys and girls beside Ji Shasha surrounded her and asked her questions. Shasha, who is this person? You guys know each other? That's right. Sasha, do you know them? The people at the same table surrounded Ji Shasha and asked. It felt as if Ji Shasha was being praised to the heavens. On the other hand, Ji Shasha herself was quite pretty, so she felt like she was floating in the air. My friend. Ji Shasha said arrogantly to the people around her. Then she turned to look at Ling Yichen and invited him. Ling Yichen, we haven't seen each other in a while. Shall we go shopping together later? Ji Shasha's gaze was as if Ling Yichen did not want to go shopping with her, it meant that he did not dare to go. Ling Yichen was silent for 2 seconds, then agreed. Okay. The more the merrier. Bring your friends along and we'll go together. Ji Shasha continued to say to Ling Yichen. However, at this moment, Ji Shasha's gaze was on Yun Jian. Beautiful girls always like to compare themselves with other girls. Ji Shasha was also such a girl. Moreover, Yun Jian was pretty. The boys and girls on Ji Shasha's side also joined in the commotion. Especially the boys on Ji Shasha's side. Their eyes were almost transfixed on Yun Jian. Chapter 902. Yeah. Let's go and have some fun. Ji Shasha added. When Ling Yichen heard that, he immediately turned to ask Yun Jian and Zhang Xiaofeng, are you guys coming? Actually, when Ling Yichen looked at Yun Jian and Zhang Xiaofeng, he looked like he was asking for help. He actually didn't want to go with Ji Shasha, but her tone made it sound like he didn't dare to go if he didn't go. Ling Yichen admitted that he was a person who cared a lot about his reputation. Hence, based on this point alone, Ling Yichen had to go. He was a man. Who was he afraid of? Wasn't it just an ex-girlfriend? Wasn't it he who dumped her back then? Sensing Ling Yichen's pleading gaze, Yun Jian continued peeling the prawns and eating as she answered, I'm fine with anything. Her hands were covered in greasy prawn oil, but Yun Jian didn't care. If Master goes, I'll go, Zhang Xiaofeng quickly replied. If Grandmaster goes, I'll go, Zhang Xiaofeng said, mimicking Zhang Xiaofeng's words. The moment Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian finished speaking, Ji Shasha couldn't help but laugh. After Ji Shasha stopped laughing, she even used her hands to cover her face as if she was trying to hide her ugliness. Master? Grandmaster? You guys still want to have a master? Ji Shasha turned to Yun Jian and smiled. Other than comparing with each other, if two girls became friends, they would also like to pair up with each other. For example, if she knew a guy, she would like to find a partner for her friend. Of course, in 1999 such things weren't as common as now, but it was undeniable that such things still existed. Hence, other than comparing her beauty with Yun Jian at first sight, Ji Shasha also wanted to become friends with Yun Jian. Because this way in other people's eyes she would be a beauty, and her friends would be beautiful too. This kind of concept took root in the hearts of young girls like Ji Shasha. Isn't that so? This is my master. Zhang Xiaofeng didn't care about Ji Shasha's disdain towards them. On the contrary, he proudly introduced Yun Jian to Ji Shasha. Of course. There's no one in this world who's more powerful than my grandmaster. Zhang Jian added. After listening to Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian's words, Ji Shasha and the others felt some disdain in their hearts, but she pretended to be very respectful on the surface. Of course, Ji Shasha and the others only took the matter of Yun Jian accepting Zhang Xiaofeng as her disciple and Zhang Jian as her grand-disciple as a joke. Students in school often like to become sworn brothers, or between students of the same grade. You call me grandpa, I'll call you grandma. Of course, there were also master and disciple relationships. However, it was rare for two big boys to take a girl as his master and the other to call her grandmaster. However, the people present only felt that the words master and martial ancestor were merely titles. This kind of master-disciple relationship was probably just to get closer to the other party, as if they had a very good relationship with the other party. That was all. How could there be any real skills that could be taught to a master and disciple or grand disciple? What skills could Yun Jian teach Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian? This was simply impossible. In any case, she, Ji Shasha, didn't believe that Yun Jian had any real skills that could be taught to Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian. Young people usually ate faster, so Yun Jian's table finished eating very quickly. Of course, the other tables didn't eat so quickly, especially the adults led by Chen Jinchuan. Other than eating, they had more important things to do, which was to chat about business. Even after eating, they would chat for at least 2 to 3 hours before leaving. Chapter 903. Right after dinner, Ji Shasha took the lead and asked Ling Yichen to bring along Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and the other two to go shopping. Chen Xini had just recovered from her illness. She had just been saved not too long ago, so of course, she could not run around as if nothing had happened to her. To be honest, Chin Sini was still under observation. Although she was discharged from the hospital, she could be in danger at any time. Therefore, it was not appropriate for her to go shopping under such circumstances. It was obvious that Chin Sini would not go. Jinjian, I'm so bored at home. Why don't you stay and keep me company? Chin Sini pulled Yunjian back when she saw that Yunjian wanted to go with them and looked at her pitifully. Once Ling Yichen heard that Chin Sini wanted to keep Yunjian, he dashed over to snatch the girl away. Ling Yichen actually admired Yunjian and wanted to take Yunjian out so that she could stand up for him. Once he recalled how Ji Shasha betrayed him and got together with another guy because he was not as good as the other guy, he was filled with rage. Since Yunjian was so capable, Ling Yichen wanted Yunjian to go with him to back him up. Sini, let Yunjian go shopping with us. Haha, I'll bring you candied haws when I come back. Ling Yichen tempted Chin Sini with delicious food. Tiske, I don't want to. Chin Sini turned her head away, but her hand was still gripping Yunjian's wrist tightly. I only want Jinjian to stay with me, Chin Sini said matter-of-factly. Then, 10 candied haws? Ling Yichen continued to tempt her. Just when everyone thought that Chin Sini was firm in her views, she agreed to Ling Yichen's terms without hesitation. Deal? Yunjian's lips twitched, but she still flashed a smile that did not lose her aura. Was she not as important as food to Chin Sini? Alright, let's go. Aha. Ling Yichen said as he beckoned everyone to set off together. Ji Shasha also revealed a smile that could be considered good or bad. Then they walked out of the gate and headed towards the downtown area near Chin Sini's villa. There was also a downtown area near Chin Sini's house. Moreover, there were many food stalls and vendors near the busy streets. Especially in this downtown square, there were many aunties twisting their butts and dancing in the square. The atmosphere on the square could be said to be quite harmonious. This downtown area was quite lively, especially the noisy square dance, which simply brought the atmosphere here to the climax. There's a lot of fun games over there. There's also a lot of delicious food. Let's hurry over and take a look. Ji Shasha walked at the front. As she spoke, she led everyone to the most lively place. Ji Shasha took 2 steps in that direction before she seemed to remember something. She turned around and ran to Yunjian, reaching out to hold Yunjian's wrist as if they were best friends. There's a lot of fun games over there. There's even a game of shooting, archery and darts. Let's go take a look. Ji Shasha said as she reached out to hold Yunjian. However, before Ji Shasha's hand could touch Yunjian's wrist, Yunjian had already dodged it discreetly. I don't like other people touching me, Yunjian said coldly and arrogantly as she dodged Ji Shasha's hand. Chapter 904. Hearing Yunjian's words, Ji Shasha's face stiffened. Ji Shasha was covered in perfume, so Yunjian felt disgusted just by smelling it. Of course, Yunjian would not directly tell Ji Shasha something like, "Get lost, I hate the perfume on your body." It was just that Yunjian was not willing to interact with Ji Shasha. Seeing Yunjian speak to her with such an attitude, Ji Shasha froze and even rolled her eyes at Yunjian. However, Ji Shasha could not throw a tantrum in front of everyone. She only saw Yunjian as a cold girl, so she was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled at Yunjian again and said, let's go play over there then. As if to ease the tension, Ji Shasha even flashed a smile at Yunjian. When the boys saw Yunjian speak to Ji Shasha like that, they had a good impression of Ji Shasha's actions. At that moment they all thought to themselves, this Ji Shasha sure has a good temper. Not only is she beautiful, but she also has a good temper. However, Yunjian was not bad either. Because Yunjian was prettier and more exquisite than Ji Shasha, Yunjian was the kind of girl who could not be found lacking at all. Moreover, Yunjian did not use rouge or face powder, but her skin still looked tender. This made everyone's hearts itch. Therefore, even though Yunjian had said those words just now, the boys felt that Yunjian was much better than Ji Shasha. Let's go play games. It's boring to stay here. The boys also joined in the commotion. Thus, the group walked towards the gaming area at the plaza. Other than a group of aunties dancing in the plaza, the gaming area was right next to it. Speaking of the gaming area, one had to mention the balloon shooting game. How did Ling Yichen meet Yunjian back then? They had met during the school's autumn outing when they won a prize by shooting balloons in the park. Back then, Ling Yichen was still a little conceited, thinking that he was very good at shooting balloons. However, after meeting Yunjian, he realized that the worst thing he did was to act like a big shot in front of Yunjian. In the end, he was slapped in the face. Let's go play balloon shooting. You boys should be very good, right? Get a big doll for us girls. Ji Shasha saw that Yunjian was ignoring her, so she turned around and held another girl's hand in hand. Ji Shasha's words made several of the boys present roll up their sleeves. They wanted to show off in front of the girls to show off their prowess. Go away, go away. Leave this to me. Among them, the one who had called Yunjian a babe and jeered the loudest, the one with a crooked nose but dressed fashionably, took a glance at Yunjian before going up to show off his skills in front of the girls. In this balloon shooting game, you could shoot balloons with guns, darts, or even shoot balloons with arrows. In short, as long as you could shoot balloons within the set number, you would win the prize. Of course, it was actually quite difficult to shoot a gun. Moreover, some shop owners had tampered with the guns. Even if the gun was aimed at the balloons, it would not hit. The boy with the crooked nose was called Zhang Qingrui. He even struck a pose that he thought was very handsome, then glanced at Yunjian from the corner of his eye. Just then Ling Yichen's voice was heard. Yunjian, do you want to go shoot a few shots too? Cindy is still hiding the big doll you gave her last time. If you give her another one, she'll be even happier later. It was actually very difficult to win a balloon shooting game like this. It was even harder to get a big doll. Chapter 905. Zhang Qingrui had just raised the toy gun in his hand. He wanted to show off his skills in front of the girls by holding the toy gun and aiming at the balloons. Then he heard Ling Yichen say that Yunjian had hit a big doll before. When they heard that Yunjian had hit a big doll before, everyone present was slightly stunned. Since the shop owner relied on this to make money, then the game he set up must be difficult. In other words, it was basically impossible to hit all the balloons and win the big doll. Unless the person was really good at playing with guns, darts, or archery, there was no way they could win the big doll. A guy like Zhang Qingrui could at most show off in front of everyone. In reality, he had no ability at all, let alone hit the balloons with a toy gun. Even if he was given 100 chances, he might not be able to hit the big doll. What's more, what Ji Shasha said earlier was merely lip service. Hence, everyone's eyes were glued to Yunjian. You really hit a big doll before? Wow, you're amazing. When Ji Shasha saw that Yunjian was the center of attention, she quickly walked over to Yunjian. After taking 2 steps, Ji Shasha stopped. She did not hold Yunjian's hand again, but her obvious goodwill was obvious to everyone present. Ha, what a hypocrite. When he saw Ji Shasha walk over to Yunjian, Zhang Xiaofeng obviously snorted. However, Zhang Xiaofeng did not make it too obvious. Ji Shasha did not hear Zhang Xiaofeng's snort at all. She was still standing beside Yunjian, feeling everyone's attention. Ji Shasha stood beside Yunjian, wanting to mislead everyone into thinking that she was very close to Yunjian. This way, all the gazes that were sizing up Yunjian would shift to her. Seeing that Yunjian was ignoring her, Ji Shasha did not change her mind. She continued to shout at Yunjian, since you're so good, can you give me a big doll? I really like that big teddy bear over there. Can you bring it down for me? Ji Shasha was still pretending that she was very close to Yunjian, but at this moment she felt more and more eyes on her. Therefore, Ji Shasha was rather pleased with herself. Not interested, Yunjian directly rejected Ji Shasha's pleas. She didn't even look at Ji Shasha. Ji Shasha was filled with resentment toward Yunjian for that. She actually ignored her words again and again. Who did she think she was? Ji Shasha was so angry that she almost exploded on the spot. But for the sake of her image, she held back. Just when the atmosphere was at its peak, Ling Yichen's voice was heard again. I heard from Cindy last time that she wanted a big teddy bear. She can pair it up with the big rabbit from last time. Just as Ling Yichen finished speaking, Yunjian was already standing in front of the balloon shooting game. She took out some loose cash and handed it to the shop owner, then said softly, darts. Ji Shasha, who was standing at the side after being rejected by Yunjian, saw Yunjian's actions. Her existence was the most awkward. Just now, when she wanted Yunjian to beat up a teddy bear for her, Yunjian directly told her that she wasn't interested. In the end, when Ling Yichen said that Chen Sini wanted it, Yunjian went to pay for it without another word. Whether Yunjian could win the teddy bear or not, Ji Shasha felt that she had formed a grudge with Yunjian. Chapter 906. Ji Shasha glared at Yunjian. She bit her lip with her front teeth, and the force she exerted was enough to prove that she hated Yunjian to the core. However, Ji Shasha's expression was still very friendly. Wait. Ji Shasha's voice suddenly rang out just as the shop owner handed the dart to Yunjian and Yunjian was about to reach out for it. Yunjian paused and her hand also stopped. She had long seen through Ji Shasha's character, and now she wanted to see what tricks Ji Shasha had up her sleeves. Thus Yunjian stopped. She stood in front of the balloon shooting grand prize stall with her arms crossed. Yunjian's aura was very good to begin with. Moreover, her appearance was outstanding. Not only did she look tall and slender, but more importantly, her face was cold and arrogant yet had the delicate features of a young girl. Everyone present couldn't help but look at her. At this moment, Yun Jian's aura was top-notch. It was something that people like Ji Shasha couldn't even compare to. What? Yun Jian spat out a slow and frivolous tone with a hint of laziness. Ji Shasha couldn't help but gulp. However, she continued to show her signature smile and said, Zhang Qingrui, aren't you pretty good at shooting, darts, and archery? Coincidentally, Ling Yichen's friend is pretty good too. Why don't the two of you compete? Hey, I think a simple game is too boring. The two of you should compete. That's more exciting, right? Ji Shasha couldn't help but provoke. Guys loved excitement. Actually, girls loved excitement too. However, as long as they weren't the ones being watched, who wouldn't want to watch others do exciting things or compete? Thus, just as Ji Shasha finished speaking, Ji Shasha and Zhang Qingrui's group of friends started to jeer again. That's right, that's right. The two of you should compete. We're all watching. Hee. Someone said to Yun Jian and Zhang Qingrui. That's right. Pretty girl, you should compete with Zhang Qingrui. The fact that you got the big doll before means that you're really lucky. Isn't that the saying that luck is also a kind of ability? Zhang Qingrui knows how to shoot, and shoot. You should compete with him. If you can beat Zhang Qingrui, we'll give it to you. Although Yun Jian had gotten the big doll before, it was only once. Ji Shasha's friends naturally wouldn't think that Yun Jian had practiced. After all, Yun Jian was still young and she was a girl. Which girl would practice marksmanship, darts, and archery? Therefore, everyone thought that Yun Jian was lucky to have won the prize back then. Ling Yichen was inwardly gleeful when he saw the questioning gazes of the people around them. Ling Yichen was planning to let Yun Jian teach them a lesson later. At that moment, Zhang Qingrui, who was asked to compete with Yun Jian in shooting, darts, or shooting, looked at Yun Jian eagerly. He even pretended to be cool as he flipped his short hair. His smug expression was hard to ignore. Although Zhang Qingrui had never won the big doll, he was still an expert at shooting balloons. Coupled with the praises of the people around him, he really thought that he was amazing. At the same time, he naturally thought that Yun Jian had won the big doll because of Yun Jian's luck. After all, luck was also a kind of ability. Chapter 907. Zhang Qingrui said this with a confident tone, as if he was really invincible. Oh, when the surrounding people heard Zhang Qingrui's indirect confession, they all cheered, hey hey hey, for a moment. Young people liked to jeer and of course Ji Shasha's group of friends were the same. What's more, some students in the school liked to do the most was to pair up. When they were paired up, they liked to act as matchmakers and help others get paired up. Zhang Qingrui, don't tell me you liked the girl from the first time you saw her. You were just trying to hit on her. After a boy finished jeering, he started to tease Zhang Qingrui. Boys like to kick up a fuss, especially when a boy confessed to a girl. If there were friends standing around, then his friends would definitely exaggerate and kick up a fuss. Although Zhang Qingrui had just gotten to know Yun Jian and it was considered a bet, everyone was observant and could tell that Zhang Qingrui was interested in Yun Jian at first glance. If you ask me, Zhang Qingrui is such an outstanding person. He's not bad-looking and has a good family background. Pretty girl, I think you should just say yes to him. Say yes to him and we can hang out together in the future. Isn't that great, right? Ah. Another guy spoke up for Zhang Qingrui. The way he called her pretty girl made Yun Jian uncomfortable all over. She didn't know why, but she just didn't like this atmosphere. Not only did she not like it, but she also hated it. When he heard his brother speaking up for him, Zhang Qingrui forgot about the bet he had previously thought of. He looked at Yun Jian with deep affection. Yun Jian's looks were indeed outstanding. She was the most outstanding in both appearance and temperament. That face without any makeup was as smooth and delicate as a newborn baby. It made people itch when they looked at it from afar. Such a beauty if he could get his hands on her. Bah! You're really a toad lusting after a swan. Are you worthy of my master? Little guy, it's morning. Stop dreaming. Zhang Xiaofeng was disgusted by Zhang Qingrui's words. He looked at Zhang Qingrui and said angrily. Zhang Xiaofeng's words made Zhang Qingrui want to strangle Zhang Xiaofeng to death. If it weren't for the fact that he wanted to establish a good image in front of Yun Jian, Zhang Qingrui would have rushed up and fought with Zhang Xiaofeng. Tiske. What toad lusting after swan meat? You better show me some respect. Otherwise I'll make you leave crying. Although Zhang Qingrui didn't make a move, his tone wasn't pleasant either. Just as Zhang Xiaofeng was about to roll up his sleeves and fight with Zhang Qingrui, Yun Jian's cold voice sounded. I agree to bet with you. Yun Jian's cold voice was devoid of any warmth. Everyone's hearts tightened slightly. Yun Jian agreed to Zhang Qingrui's bet. However, based on the current situation, Yun Jian would definitely lose. After all, Zhang Qingrui was really capable. What about Yun Jian? She was just lucky the last time. Everyone present automatically thought that Yun Jian was lucky to win the big doll. So when they heard that Yun Jian agreed to the bet with Zhang Qingrui, could it be understood that she was indirectly agreeing to be Zhang Qingrui's girlfriend? Just as everyone thought of this, even Zhang Qingrui himself thought so. Yun Jian's voice sounded again. She said to Zhang Qingrui. Chapter 908. How ruthless. If Zhang Qingrui lost to Yun Jian, he would have to kneel down and kowtow to Yun Jian 3 times and call her ancestor. If Zhang Qingrui really kneeled down and kowtowed to Yun Jian 3 times and called Yun Jian ancestor, Zhang Qingrui would probably lose all his dignity and face. Everyone present took a deep breath and turned to look at Yun Jian. Yun Jian's words were something that no one present expected. Even Ling Yichen, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian who were watching the show from the side were slightly shocked. Not only did Yun Jian agree to the bet, but she also wanted Zhang Qingrui to kowtow to her 3 times if she won? Wasn't this a little too ruthless? However, before anyone could think about it, Yun Jian's words came again. She said to Zhang Qingrui in a provocative tone, "How about it? Do you dare to bet with me?" Yun Jian's tone sounded as if everything was under her control. It was as if Zhang Qingrui was bound to lose. At that moment, even Zhang Qingrui couldn't help but take a deep breath. After he calmed down, he remained silent for a while. If he went back on his word and didn't bet with Yun Jian, it would destroy the masculinity that he had just built up. For a moment, Zhang Qingrui really didn't know how to choose. "Hey, that's all you have," Yun Jian scoffed and said softly. Yun Jian's mocking words directly provoked Zhang Qingrui's morale. If Zhang Qingrui did have the intention to give up on the bet with Yun Jian, then at that moment, Zhang Qingrui was completely instigated by Yun Jian. "Why wouldn't I dare to bet?" Zhang Qingrui said loudly. After a pause, he continued to look at Yun Jian from head to toe and said, "Little beauty, you said it yourself. If you lose, you have to be my girlfriend. You can't go back on your word." Zhang Qingrui looked at Yun Jian with an evil gaze, which made Yun Jian very unhappy. Yun Jian didn't say whether she agreed or not. She continued to urge, "Do you want to go first or should I?" "Of course I'll go first." Zhang Qingrui pretended to be a man and stretched out his arms to show off his muscles, but in fact he didn't have any muscles at all. As he spoke, Zhang Qingrui had already arrived in front of the balloon shooting game stall under the cheers of the boys. "Then let's compete in darts?" Zhang Qingrui saw Yun Jian holding darts in her hand, so he smiled slyly. She had heard from Ling Yichen that Yun Jian had gotten a big doll from shooting. Now that they were competing in darts, Yun Jian wouldn't know how to do it, would she? When he thought about how he only needed to pop a few more balloons than Yun Jian to be able to have the beauty in his arms, Zhang Qingrui felt his body become restless. "Good luck, you guys." Ji Shasha, who was standing far away, smiled, but she had other thoughts in her mind. Good luck. Master, you can do it." Zhang Xiaofeng shouted, not to be outdone. "Grandmaster, you can do it. You're the best. Hehe, let him see your amazing skills." Zhang Jian also followed up with a shout. Bang. At that moment, Zhang Qingrui had already popped the first balloon with the first dart in his hand. Zhang Qingrui broke out in cold sweat when he popped the first balloon, but he still looked at Yun Jian very proudly. His gaze was as if he was gloating that he had popped the first balloon, as if he would definitely win. Chapter 909. Zhang Qingrui saw that Yun Jian didn't intend to pay attention to him, but he wasn't angry. Instead, he put on an expression that said, "Just wait and see." Then he took the dart and threw it again with full concentration. Bang! The sound of a balloon being punctured was heard again. At this time, sweat gathered on Zhang Qingrui's forehead. Every time Zhang Qingrui threw a dart, his hand trembled. It had to be said that Zhang Qingrui's hand trembled more and more as the dart went on. After all, the first and second dart might be able to hit the balloon, but if he didn't have confidence in himself, what if one of the dart flew wrong and couldn't puncture the balloon? Of course, Zhang Qingrui and Yun Jian were competing to see who could puncture more balloons. If neither of them reached 15 dart and each dart punctured a balloon, then it would depend on who could puncture more balloons. But what if Yun Jian really hit every dart? This was what Zhang Qingrui was afraid of. If Yun Jian hit every dart and was really lucky, then wouldn't he really have to kowtow to Yun Jian 3 times and call her ancestor in public? No, this was impossible and he couldn't. He still wanted to save face. For the next dozen or so dart, Zhang Qingrui developed quite well. He actually punctured more than a dozen balloons. This kind of dart could fly 15 dart in total. However, when Zhang Qingrui threw the 13th dart, he suddenly lost control of his hand and threw a dart that didn't hit the balloon. This miss scared Zhang Qingrui. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva, and his hand couldn't help but shiver. Come on, Zhang Qingrui. I believe you can do it. Zhang Qingrui's buddy next to him cheered for Zhang Qingrui. Zhang Qingrui tried to calm down after being cheered by his buddy. After calming down, Zhang Qingrui took 2 deep breaths, and then he threw the last 2 darts in succession. Bang bang. The 2 dart punctured the balloon and made the sound of the balloon being punctured. Phew. Zhang Qingrui breathed a sigh of relief. Then he stretched out his hand and swung it. Only then did he look at Yunjian. Little beauty, it's your turn. Zhang Qingrui teased. There were a total of 15 darts and he hit 14 of them. That was to say he had punctured 14 balloons and only 1 balloon had not been hit. This kind of result should be considered to be in the upper echelons of the number of people who won the balloon shooting game, right? Zhang Qingrui, you're amazing. Too powerful. Ji Shasha couldn't help but speak first. As she spoke, Ji Shasha looked at Ling Yichen provocatively. Actually, Ji Shasha was competing with Ling Yichen. Hee. Zhang Qingrui really thought that he was very powerful. He touched his head but didn't forget to remind Yunjian, little beauty, I'm looking forward to your performance. As he spoke, Zhang Qingrui still had a feeling that he was determined to win. When Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen and Zhang Jian saw this from afar, they did not panic at all. At the same time, Yunjian extended her arms and held the 15 darts in each of her hands. Almost at the same time, she divided the 15 darts into 7 for her left hand and 8 for her right hand, holding them separately in both hands. F***ck, what's she doing? Is she going to throw 15 darts at the same time? Is she stupid? How low is the hit rate if she throws 15 darts at the same time? It's impossible to hit the target. Someone analyzed in a low voice. However, halfway through his analysis, Yunjian had already thrown the darts in her hands. 15 darts were shot out at the same time. Everyone present was slightly surprised. However, just as everyone present thought that there was no chance of winning if all 15 darts were shot at the same time. Chapter 9-10. 15 darts flew out from Yunjian's hands. She threw the darts with both hands at the same time. The 15 darts were like a curved arc as they flew out at the same time. Not long after, a piercing sound was heard. 15 darts flew out at once. Everyone present widened their eyes and looked at the scene in front of them in disbelief. For a moment, the surroundings were extremely quiet. Other than the sound of the square dance march not far away, everyone who had witnessed the scene just now looked over in shock. To be precise, they were looking at Yunjian. You. Zhang Qingrui was so shocked that he could not speak. He had long been shocked by the way Yunjian threw the darts. He stuttered but could only say you in the end. Zhang Qingrui was stunned. Ji Shasha was even more dumbfounded. She originally wanted Yunjian to lose, but she did not expect Yunjian to win. Not only did she win, but she also threw all 15 darts and won in the shortest time possible. The 15 darts were held in both hands. How did Yunjian manage to throw all the darts out at once? Most importantly, she was able to make each of the darts puncture the balloons. It had to be said that Yunjian's move just now was too terrifying. It had completely overturned everyone's understanding. Even the shop owner was dumbfounded. The shop owner's mouth was still agape, and he looked like he could not react for a long time. She won just like that? Hee boss, she won. Shouldn't you give us the big bear doll? Ling Yichen went to the front and looked at the shop owner with a grin. He even reached out his hand to ask for it. Yunjian had already paid for the balloons. Moreover, with so many people watching, the shop owner could not go back on his word. The shop owner took the big teddy bear from his stall and handed it to Ling Yichen in the end. Ji Shasha watched as Yunjian really hit the big bear doll. Her face was full of envy. Then Ji Shasha watched as Ling Yichen took the big bear doll and hugged it in his arms. Ji Shasha was extremely envious. Ling Yichen, can you give this big teddy bear to me? Ji Shasha shamelessly asked Ling Yichen for it. She did not care if the teddy bear belonged to Yunjian. It was in Ling Yichen's hands anyway. Back then, when Ling Yichen and Ji Shasha were still a couple, he would buy everything for Ji Shasha and treated her extremely well. However, Ji Shasha ran away with another guy because she despised Ling Yichen for not being as good as the other guy. Ji Shasha thought that since they were boyfriend and girlfriend in the past, Ling Yichen would probably give the big teddy bear to her, right? F***ck, get lost. Who wants to give it to you? It's Yunjian's. Ling Yichen did not even look at Ji Shasha as he cursed. Ji Shasha was stunned. She had never heard Ling Yichen swear at her before. However, it was also at this moment that Yun Jian's voice rang out again. I've won. It's time for you to honor your words. Her words were directed at Zhang Qingrui. Zhang Qingrui suddenly remembered that he had promised Yun Jian. He immediately bit his lip. Hey, I was just joking just now. Little beauty, you were joking too, right? Hehe, what kind of relationship do we have now? Let's just forget about what happened just now. Zhang Qingrui made up a bunch of nonsense. Yeah, we were just joking just now. Hehe, I think we should just forget about it. Immediately, a guy stood up for Zhang Qingrui. Forget about it? Yun Jian frowned. If she was the one who lost today, Yun Jian was sure that Zhang Qingrui would force her to honor her words. You don't want to admit it? Yun Jian looked at Zhang Qingrui with a murderous glint in her eyes. Just as Zhang Qingrui was about to say something, he suddenly felt a voice in front of him. In the next second he felt someone kick him from behind and he fell to the ground with a thud. Chapter 9:11. Startled by Yun Jian's sudden action, everyone present was taken aback. It was inevitable that Zhang Qingrui would not keep his word. Boys and girls who were in puberty had to kneel down and kowtow to others. They also had to call them ancestors. No one would be happy to do such a thing. Especially a boy like Zhang Qingrui who cared about his reputation to the extreme. Previously, when he hit on Yun Jian in front of her, Zhang Qingrui was holding on to the fact that Yun Jian was beautiful. If he could successfully make Yun Jian his girlfriend, then he would be particularly magical in front of his classmates and friends. In this way his reputation would be very big. Moreover, when he agreed to bet with Yun Jian, Zhang Qingrui felt that he would not lose. Even if he lost, he felt that he would not keep his promise. At most he would just find an excuse. What kind of bet would there be? This matter would definitely be over just like that. However, who would have thought that when Zhang Qingrui and his group once again tried to use their previous methods to casually fool Yun Jian's original words as a joke, Yun Jian would actually do such a shocking thing. She actually went directly behind Zhang Qingrui, stretched out her leg and stomped on Zhang Qingrui's back, forcing him to kneel down. Girls were generally very reserved, especially in front of boys. Even the most irritable girls would become reserved. However, look at Yun Jian. She made a bet with Zhang Qingrui, but Zhang Qingrui did not keep his word after losing. She directly stepped on Zhang Qingrui's back in front of so many people. She even said something like, "If you don't keep your promise today, I will make sure you won't see the sun tomorrow." Was this still the attitude a girl should have? Ouch. Zhang Qingrui was forced to kneel on the ground by Yun Jian. He suddenly felt that he had lost all his face, so he struggled to stand up. However, Yun Jian's foot seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. It was like a huge rock, oppressing him to the point that it was difficult for him to even breathe. "You, little beauty, you are too much." A boy around saw it and pointed at Yun Jian. This boy was the one who helped Zhang Qingrui to get Yun Jian to agree to be Zhang Qingrui's girlfriend. F***ck, how did my master go overboard? Today's bet was brought up by your people first. My master is only asking you to fulfill your promise. How is this going overboard? I think it's you guys who can't afford to lose. Zhang Xiaofeng quickly spoke up for Yun Jian. Exactly. If you can't afford to lose, then why do you still want to compete with my grandmaster? You guys are really shameless. Zhang Jian also took advantage of the situation and said, "You." The boy who spoke for Zhang Qingrui just now was no match for Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian stopped him with a few words. "Are you going to kowtow? Are you going to shout or not?" Yun Jian stepped on Zhang Qingrui's back, forcing him to lower his head even more. "Aren't you going too far? How can we girls be like this?" Just then Ji Shasha's voice sounded weakly from the side. Ji Shasha's words were directed at Yun Jian. However, when these words came out of Ji Shasha's mouth, why did it sound like she was blaming Yun Jian for being rude and not behaving like a girl at all? Before anyone could think about it, they saw Yun Jian stepping on Zhang Qingrui's back, and with a fierce kick she forced Zhang Qingrui to kowtow to the ground, making a bang sound. "If you don't kowtow, I'll help you." Yun Jian ignored Ji Shasha's words. At the same time she lifted her foot, and when Zhang Qingrui's body bounced back she ruthlessly kicked him again. Chapter 9:12. As Yun Jian spoke, she lifted her leg. Just as Zhang Qingrui's body was about to bounce back, she stomped down again. Just like that, Zhang Qingrui's head was knocked to the ground again and again. Each time there was a loud thud. It's fine if you don't shout, but I'll make you kowtow 1,000 times. Yun Jian laughed coldly. As she spoke, she used this repeated position to make Zhang Qingrui kowtow a few more times. 1,000 times? Wouldn't Zhang Qingrui's head be smashed? Everyone present couldn't help but suck in a deep breath. Zhang Qingrui's head was smashed to the ground again and again, making a series of loud noises, which made everyone's hair stand on end. Don't. Zhang Qingrui was already dizzy from the kowtowing. He struggled with all his might and even reached back to pull Yun Jian's foot off his back. However, he couldn't even touch Yun Jian. I'll beg for mercy. I'll talk. Zhang Qingrui could even feel that his forehead was bleeding. He was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He quickly begged Yun Jian for mercy. Speak. Although Yun Jian stopped making Zhang Qingrui kowtow, her foot was still on Zhang Qingrui's back. After seeing Yun Jian's methods, Zhang Qingrui didn't dare to play any tricks. He still wanted to live. Thus, Zhang Qingrui swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His forehead hurt from the kowtowing. He didn't want to endure it anymore, so he mustered up his courage and called out softly, "Ancestor! Ancestor!" His voice was as soft as a cat's meow. Can you hear what he said? Yun Jian turned her head and looked at Zhang Xiaofeng, Zhang Jian and Ling Yichen. Her red lips curled up. It was so beautiful that it made people's hearts itch. What did he say? Master, I can't hear him. Zhang Xiaofeng reached out to dig his ears. He pretended that he didn't hear anything, but he was secretly laughing in his heart. Did he say anything? Did someone speak just now? Martial Ancestor, I only heard you talking. Zhang Jian also helped to add on. Ling Yichen was trying so hard to hold back his laughter that he was about to suffer internal injuries. He raised his hand into a fist and placed it by his mouth, coughing softly. Ahem. I didn't hear anything either. Ling Yichen lied without batting an eyelid. We all heard it. Why are you the only ones? One of Zhang Qingrui's brothers stood up and spoke for Zhang Qingrui. Just as he said that, Zhang Qingrui screamed again. Yun Jian raised her foot and kicked Zhang Qingrui's forehead to the ground, making a bang sound. I can't hear what you're saying. I'll give you one last chance. If you don't make a sound, I'll take it that you want to kowtow to me 1,000 times, Yun Jian said eerily. Then she added, of course I'd prefer it if you kowtowed to me and admitted your mistake. As she spoke, Yun Jian made Zhang Qingrui hit the ground again, making loud bangs. No, I'll talk. Zhang Qingrui was forced into a corner by Yun Jian. Finally, he could not hold it in anymore and cried out in a half-sob. Just as Zhang Qingrui said that, a rich and magnetic male voice came from the side. Xiao Jin, you're still so soft-hearted. Chapter 9:13. The moment they saw the man, all the girls' hearts began to race. They saw Si slowly walking towards them. His steps were steady, but they were mesmerizing. Ji Shasha, who stood where she was, watched as Si appeared and made his way to her slowly. She felt as if her heart was about to melt, as if she had found her first love. Ji Shasha even had this thought in her mind. Will this man who suddenly appeared walk towards me? The answer was no. Si walked around Ji Shasha and the others. He wasn't the least bit attracted by the girls who were looking at him with reverence. Furthermore, he didn't even look at these girls. His black eyes only reflected a proud figure from the beginning to the end. That beautiful figure, her voluptuous figure, and her every move were enough to make him unable to let go. Why are you here? Yun Jian didn't loosen her grip on Zhang Qingrui's back, but she was still talking to Ce. If I didn't come, how would I be able to kill these flies who want to steal my woman? As Ce spoke, he had already arrived in front of Yun Jian. As Ce spoke, he stretched out his leg and viciously stepped on Zhang Qingrui's palm, causing him to toss and turn. Ah, it hurts. Zhang Qingrui had already planned to call Yun Jian ancestor, in exchange for not being tortured. However, he never expected that Ce would suddenly appear after Yun Jian agreed to let go. Ce didn't care who he was. He walked over and stepped on the back of Zhang Qingrui's palm without saying a word. The piercing pain caused Zhang Qingrui to curl up into a ball. Ancestor, I'm calling you ancestor. Please let me go, please let me go. Zhang Qingrui was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. At the same time, he couldn't stop himself from shouting. At this moment he was calling out, ancestor, quite smoothly. Now that Yun Jian had achieved her goal, she let go of his foot. In spite of it, Ce refused to budge even when Yun Jian had stopped. Ce stepped on the back of Zhang Qingrui's hand, a hint of disgust appearing on his handsome face. You can prepare to die now. Siyi was no doubt more ruthless than Yun Jian. If one were to ask why, it was because Yun Jian had more concerns than Siyi. Yun Jian's family in Longmen City was a family. This kinship was not easy to come by. It was something Yun Jian had yearned for 2 lifetimes. Siyi had no qualms at all, so it was fine when he did not make a move, but once he did, he was going to kill his opponent. It was just that for Yun Jian, Siyi held himself back. However, it didn't mean that he would let these people who wanted to steal his woman. Ji Shasha was envious from afar. Why did such a handsome guy appear out of nowhere and turn out to be Yun Jian's man? What? As Ji Shasha pondered, she plucked up her courage and took 2 steps towards Siyi. Hey handsome, he's my friend. Can you let him go? Ji Shasha winked at Siyi as she spoke. Ji Shasha was rather confident in her looks and did not think that she was worse than Yun Jian. It was her first time seeing someone as handsome as Siyi. Ji Shasha's eyes were glued to him and she could not think of anything else. Ji Shasha was indignant when Siyi ignored her. She reached out to touch Siyi and said, "Handsome, do me a favor." She even stuck out her tongue playfully. She then continued, "He's my friend. Can you?" Ji Shasha did not notice that Siyi's brows were furrowed into a line. When Ji Shasha was only half a meter away from Siyi, the latter suddenly released his foot from Zhang Qingrui and raised it to kick Ji Shasha's abdomen, sending her flying a few meters away. At the same time he spat out a few words coldly, "You're right. You're right." Chapter 9:14. Ji Shasha was sent flying a few meters by Siyi's kick. The moment she was kicked in the abdomen, Ji Shasha felt like she was about to throw up her breakfast. Within a few seconds, Ji Shasha was heavily smashed to the ground. Her body trembled twice and then there was no sound. Really? Someone was going to be beaten to death. That was the only thought in everyone's mind at this moment. Pain, pain, pain. I was wrong. I'm not human. I was wrong. Please let me go. I didn't know she was your woman. I won't dare to do it again. Please. Zhang Qingrui's begging voice sounded again. However, Siyi had already stepped on the back of Zhang Qingrui's hand. Kacha. Kacha. The sound of Zhang Qingrui's finger joints breaking could be heard. In the next second, Zhang Qingrui fainted from the pain. It was only then that Siyi retracted his leg. There was a tinge of seriousness on his handsome face that was completely different from before. Emosen, drag him to feed the dogs. Siyi tilted his head. His flawless face made everyone's heart beat uncontrollably. However, the words that came out of Siyi's mouth made everyone tremble. It was only when Siyi opened his mouth that everyone noticed a person standing not too far away. Emosen was standing in his original position with his hands behind his back. His handsome face paled in comparison to Siyi's, but compared to the group of boys present, it was a piece of cake. Because of Siyi's appearance, Emosen didn't stand out at all. When everyone present reacted, they realized that there was a similarly handsome man standing there. After the man walked over, he picked up Zhang Qingrui, who was lying on the ground half dead, and dragged Zhang Qingrui and quickly disappeared from the place. Even if he didn't die, Zhang Qingrui would suffer a fate worse than death. Furthermore, from Siyi's tone, it seemed like he wanted to kill Zhang Qingrui to relieve the hatred in his heart. After the unconscious Zhang Qingrui was dragged away by Emosen, Ji Shasha was helped up from the ground, trembling in fear. She was scared half to death. Zhang Qingrui was being fed to the dogs? Is this true or false? But whether it was true or not, it was enough to scare Ji Shasha out of her wits. Siyi walked over to Yun Jian while everyone was still in shock. At the same time, he reached out to grab Yun Jian's hand and left without saying a word. Hey master, wait for us. Zhang Xiaofeng saw that Yun Jian had been pulled away by Siyi, so he hurriedly followed them. Unexpectedly, Siyi turned her head and gave him a cold look. His eyes seemed to say that if Zhang Xiaofeng dared to follow him, Siyi would chop him into pieces. Under Siyi's gaze, Zhang Xiaofeng felt his scalp go numb. He trembled violently and finally swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He even slapped his lips and said, "I think we should just stand here." That's good." Zhang Xiaofeng's reaction made Zhang Jian and Ling Yichen not dare to follow them. Thus, the three of them stood there and waited for Yun Jian to return. Yun Jian wouldn't leave by herself, and Siyi wouldn't leave directly with her either. Thus, Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two continued to wait in place. Siyi pulled Yun Jian and disappeared from everyone's sight. However, he only pulled Yun Jian into a small thicket. The moment they entered the thicket, he reached out and hugged Yun Jian. That magnetic male voice with a hint of breathlessness came from above. Chapter 9:15. Although Ce said that, in reality he was thinking in his heart, if something like this happens again, I'll make her my woman. Someone else wanted to lay their hands on my woman? And they wanted to leave this place alive? Dream on. He couldn't stand it when he saw Zhang Qingrui trying to touch Yunjian. He didn't want anyone to see her beauty. She could only be his and he couldn't share her with anyone else. Not a chance. Yunjian was nestled in Ci's arms. Her head was just enough to reach Ci's chin. However, if someone saw the scene of Yunjian nestled in Ci's arms, they wouldn't think that the difference in height between Yunjian and Ce was strange. On the contrary, although the difference in height between the two was huge, it gave off a feeling that they were a perfect match. Nestled in Ci's arms and enjoying his unique fresh scent, Yunjian raised her head to look at him. She asked a question that she knew the answer to in order to ease the awkwardness. Why are you here? However, before Yunjian could finish her question, Ce had already bent down slightly. His tall figure bent down and covered Yunjian's mouth faster than lightning. They tossed and turned and it was extremely ambiguous. Phew, it feels so good after taking a dump. At this moment an auntie ran out of the restroom near the plaza. Because the auntie was in a hurry to go back to square dance with her friends, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to keep up with the pace. Therefore, when she saw a small path here, she quickly ran over. Just as the auntie ran into the thicket, she suddenly saw two figures with their lips intertwined. Moreover, she also saw that the relatively tall figure, even in the darkness, could recognize that it was a man. At this moment, this figure's hand was slowly moving down the girl's back. Oh my God! The middle-aged woman saw this shocking scene as soon as she slipped into the bushes. She was not mentally prepared at all, so she jumped and yelled out. Upon hearing the commotion, Ce glanced sideways at the middle-aged woman. After a few glances, Ce shifted his gaze and continued to look at Yunjian with his lips pressed against hers. Of course, being watched by the woman, Ce loosened his grip after a couple more kisses and straightened his back. At the same time he pulled Yunjian into his embrace. The middle-aged woman was stunned when she saw this. After she recovered from her shock, the corners of her mouth twitched. She couldn't help but point at Ce. Young man. Don't be impetuous. Forcing a young lady like this in a place like this. Sigh. Young man, you have to be responsible for this little girl. Young people like you, don't turn your back on us after you get a little girl pregnant. The middle-aged woman seemed to have misunderstood something. As she spoke, she waved her hand exaggeratedly. The middle-aged woman's old face was a mess. As she spoke, she seemed to have thought of something that was difficult to speak of, and then ran away like a wisp of smoke. Ce, who was still hugging Yunjian's slender waist, also twitched the corners of his mouth. He had been misunderstood. However, if they weren't in the bushes in the public square, if they weren't here, he might have already done as the middle-aged woman said. Yunjian was nestled in Ce's embrace. Although she didn't see the middle-aged woman's actions, she could still hear her words. In an instant, her face was as red as blood. Fortunately, it was pitch black here. Only the street lights in the distance shone on them. Chapter 9:16. By the time Yunjian and Ce came out of the bushes, Yunjian's emotions had already calmed down quite a bit. At the very least, that alluring flush had disappeared without a trace. However, her heart was still pounding, and her little hand was held by Ce. Master. The moment they saw Yunjian, Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian quickly went up to her. With Zhang Xiaofeng in the lead, Zhang Xiaofeng and Zhang Jian quickly stood in front of Yunjian. Grandmaster, where did you guys go? Zhang Jian's chubby body looked quite cute. Zhang Xiaofeng, who was standing beside Zhang Jian, couldn't help but reach out to rub Zhang Jian's head. We didn't go far, Yunjian said naturally. Oh. Zhang Jian nodded obediently. Master, do you want to go to Cinny's house with us later? Zhang Xiaofeng asked again. The few of them had dinner at Chen Cinny's house, but after dinner they went out for a stroll. Ling Yichen had promised Chen Cinny to bring her 10 sticks of candied haws, and he wouldn't go back on his word. Ling Yichen wasn't here at the moment. He had gone to buy the candied haws. Let's go, Yunjian nodded. Actually, when they came out, Chen Cinny had repeatedly reminded Yunjian to go back with Zhang Xiaofeng and the other two to visit her before going home. Chen Cinny couldn't come out to play, but Chen Cinny really wanted to come out. However, her current injuries prevented Chen Cinny from doing so. Yunjian had promised Chen Cinny that she would go back to accompany Chen Cinny before going home. Moreover, Yunjian didn't have anything important to do at home. Good. Cinny will definitely be very happy. Zhang Xiaofeng quickly said such a sentence. Coming. We've bought the candied haws. We can go back now. Ling Yichen ran back from afar with dozens of sticks of candied haws in his hands. Haha, thank you for your hard work. Zhang Xiaofeng quickly took a few skewers from Ling Yichen. Each of you can have one skewer. Leave the rest for Cinny to bring back. Ling Yichen had bought quite a lot of candied haws, so he had bought some for Qin Cinny as well as some for the few of them to eat together. Hee hee, you brat, how did you become so good now? What? Could it be that he had found his conscience? Ah. Zhang Xiaofeng said as he distributed a stick of candied haws to everyone. Then he held the stick in his hand and licked it. Ce took the stick of candied haws she got and quietly passed it to Yunjian. I don't eat sweets. You have it. Yunjian quite liked sweets. When she heard Ce say this, she glared at Ce and thought to herself, you said you don't eat sweets. Then why did it seem like all the sweets I've eaten before have been snatched by Ce? Hee hee, oh right, I heard something interesting just now. Ling Yichen pretended to be mysterious and kept them in suspense. At this moment, Yunjian had already stuffed the candied haws into her mouth. What is it, what is it? Tell us about it and make us happy. Zhang Xiaofeng immediately became interested. Of course, he walked over and put his arm around Ling Yichen's shoulder, wanting him to tell him. Yunjian's eyelids twitched slightly. I was buying candied haws just now when I overheard an auntie talking to someone on the side of the road. It seems like in a small bush nearby, there's a young couple doing it in the wild. Ling Yichen kept them in suspense and then said with interest. Chapter 9:17. Yunjian had just stuffed a piece of candied fruit into her mouth. The candied fruit had not even melted in her mouth yet, so when she heard Ling Yichen's words, she spat it out without a care for her image. The piece of candied fruit that came out of Yunjian's mouth rolled far away and even slid into the sewers. Ce stood beside Yunjian and stroked Yunjian's back without a change in expression, patting her gently to prevent her from choking. Oh my god, Yunjian, what's wrong with you? Why are you reacting so strongly? Was what I said really that shocking? Haha, even you are so shocked. Ling Yichen guffawed, thinking that what he said had shocked even Yunjian. After Ling Yichen was done laughing, he still did not know what he said had made Yunjian choke. He sighed with increasing impudence. But young people nowadays really don't know how to be flirtatious. They're so brazen. Yeah. I really want to see it for myself, haha. Zhang Xiaofeng chimed in as if he did not care about his life. Ah. Zhang Jian also guffawed. Then, as if nothing had happened, he stuffed the candied fruit into his mouth and chewed slowly. It's okay. When Yunjian caught her breath and turned to say this to Ce let go of her hand that was patting her back. Hey, it was that auntie who told me about the young couple having sex in the open. Yunjian, since you're so interested, I'll call her over for you. Ling Yichen saw a figure. As he spoke, he waved in that direction and walked over quickly. Ling Yichen's reaction speed was faster than anyone else's. Before Yunjian could stop him, Ling Yichen had already run over to that auntie. Auntie, hello auntie. In order to express goodwill, it was normal to address people 2 times older than oneself as auntie. Ling Yichen's mouth was very sweet. He did not call the other party auntie when he rushed up. Instead, he called the woman auntie. Yunjian watched as Ling Yichen ran towards the woman. She almost took out her butterfly knife and swung it at Ling Yichen. Of course, this was just Yunjian's idea. She naturally wouldn't do it. It was at this moment that Ling Yichen stopped the middle-aged woman from earlier. He lowered his head to look at the middle-aged woman who was about 20 centimeters shorter than him. Auntie, I just heard that you saw a young couple in the nearby bushes. They were having sex. It's like this, my friend is very interested in this matter, so can I trouble you to tell me more about it? Ling Yichen had no sense of shame at all. At least, when Ling Yichen asked these questions he did not think it was overboard at all. However, Ling Yichen's question startled the middle-aged woman. After all, the auntie had secretly said it to her friend. How could someone else have heard it? However, just hearing Ling Yichen call her auntie made the woman feel a few years younger. She immediately agreed to Ling Yichen's request. Look, my friend is over there. Ling Yichen shamelessly pointed in the direction of Yunjian and Ce. The middle-aged woman casually turned her head and looked over. In the end, when she saw Yunjian and Ce standing not too far away, she exclaimed in shock, You too. Chapter 9:18. The bushes were so dark that they couldn't even see their fingers in front of them, but they could still make out their silhouettes. There were lights nearby, so even though they couldn't see the person's face clearly, they could roughly make out their height and figure. The auntie had rushed out from the bushes because she had seen something that made her feel shy and awkward. The auntie had almost died from embarrassment when she saw what had happened. Now that she saw Yun Jian and Ce, she immediately matched Yun Jian and Ce with the couple in the bushes. However, when she saw Yun Jian and Ce's faces clearly, the auntie paused. After all, the lights in the bushes were very dark, so the auntie didn't dare to see clearly. Other than Yun Jian and Ce's silhouettes, she didn't see anything else clearly. Naturally, she couldn't come to a conclusion. "Auntie? What's wrong?" Ling Yichen asked in confusion as he watched the auntie look at Yun Jian and Ce. However, just as Ling Yichen said that, the auntie suddenly waved her hand and comforted herself. No, I probably hit the wrong number. My eyes are blurry because I'm old. I'm old and I can't see clearly." The auntie then turned her gaze to Yun Jian and Ce. She looked at Yun Jian and Ce and asked, "Young lady, young man, are you the ones who wanted to hear about what happened just now?" Yun Jian's lips twitched, but she couldn't hide it, so she could only nod in tacit agreement. Only then did the auntie start talking nonstop. "Tisk, speaking of that couple. At that time, I had just come out of the washroom after relieving myself. I wanted to hurry back to dance, but then I saw that couple hugging in the bushes." The auntie was very intoxicated as she spoke. Yun Jian's face had already stiffened. Ling Yichen and Zhang Xiaofeng even used exaggerated words like, oh, to express their shock. Hearing how Ling Yichen and Zhang Xiaofeng cooperated with her, the auntie became more and more agreeable. "Hey, you guys weren't there so you don't know. At that time, the man put his hand on the woman's butt. Tell me, isn't that a field battle?" The auntie was quite fashionable. As she spoke, she even laughed twice. Ahem. Yun Jian couldn't help but cough when the woman said this. "Auntie, are you in a hurry to go dancing?" Yun Jian noticed this and turned to look at the auntie. At this moment, the auntie suddenly remembered that she had been so busy talking about this that she had forgotten to square dance with everyone. That was a new dance that she had just learned. She had already wasted a lot of time going to the toilet. If she didn't catch up now, how would she be able to learn it? Look at my memory. When one gets old, one's memory deteriorates. Hey, you guys have fun first. Auntie is going to dance. With that, the auntie waved at everyone present and then left the place very energetically. After that, only Ling Yichen, Zhang Xiaofeng, and a few others were left behind. They were intoxicated by the auntie's words, but their train of thought had suddenly been cut off. Haha, looks like it really was a field battle. When did people become so daring these days? Big news, haha, big news. I'm going to tell Cindy tonight when I get back. Tomorrow I'll tell the whole school about this. Ling Yichen was so excited that it seemed like he couldn't wait to let the whole world know about this. Chapter 9:19. Ling Yichen's agitated emotions instantly vanished. He had no idea what he had done to upset Yun Jian, so he was stunned. When he came back to his senses, Ling Yichen asked Yun Jian, "No, Yun Jian, why can't I say it?" "Don't say it if I tell you not to." Yun Jian only glanced at Ling Yichen, then turned to leave. After Yun Jian left, Ce naturally followed. When Zhang Xiaofeng saw this, he grinned and nudged Ling Yichen, then ran over to Yun Jian. Zhang Xiaofeng ran over to Yun Jian and so did Zhang Jian. Ling Yichen did not follow them immediately. He stood where he was with a bunch of candied haws in his hands. Frowning, he could not help but complain to himself, did I say something wrong?" After saying that, Ling Yichen thought seriously for a while, then continued to talk to himself. "I don't think I said anything wrong. Didn't I say that I wanted to tell Cindy and the other students in school about this? The two of them aren't the main characters in this matter. Why didn't Yun Jian let me say it?" When he thought up to this point, Ling Yichen saw that Yun Jian and the others had already walked far away, so he stopped thinking. Who cares? Since Yun Jian said that he couldn't say it, then he wouldn't say it. After thinking it through, Ling Yichen shouted, "Wait for me, you guys." After that, Ling Yichen sped over to where Yun Jian and the others were. The few of them went back to Qin Sini's house in a hubbub. When they reached Qin Sini's house, they realized that Ji Shasha and the others had already returned. Qin Sini's father, Qin Jinchuan, was treating them today because Qin Sini had just been discharged from the hospital. The people Qin Jinchuan invited were basically his business friends. As for Ji Shasha and the others, they were the children of Qin Jinchuan's business friends. Therefore, even if Ji Shasha and the others wanted to go home, they had to go to Qin Sini's house first before going home with their parents. Ji Shasha and the others went to Qin Sini's house first. Yun Jian and the others had not returned yet. However, as soon as Ji Shasha and the others returned to Qin Sini's house, Ji Shasha saw Zhang Qingrui's parents, whom Mimo's son had taken out to feed the dog. "Shasha, you're back? Why didn't my Ruerue come back with you?" Zhang Qingrui's mother looked around and asked suspiciously. Ji Shasha was afraid of what had happened before, so she took a few deep breaths. But when she thought of the scene just now, Ji Shasha was so scared that she didn't dare to tell the truth. Zhang Qingrui seemed to have said that he couldn't stay here any longer, so he went home first. We didn't pay much attention to him just now. This was the confession that Ji Shasha had negotiated with a group of classmates. As long as they insisted that Zhang Qingrui had gone home first, then even if Zhang Qingrui went missing, they wouldn't be blamed. This brat, he actually ran home by himself again. Zhang Qingrui's mother said through gritted teeth. Then she smiled at Ji Shasha and said, "Shasha, thank you for telling me. This brat, I'll give him a good beating when I get back." As she said that, Zhang Qingrui's mother pretended to be angry. Ji Shasha smiled guiltily at Zhang Qingrui's mother. At this moment, the door was opened again. With Yun Jian and Ce leading the way, Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Zhang Jian behind, the five of them walked in from the door. When Ji Shasha and the others saw Yun Jian and the others, they trembled violently. Chapter 920. Qin Sini ran down the stairs as fast as she could. Downstairs, Qin Jinchuan was still chatting with a group of friends in the business field. Haha, Sini, look. Zhang Xiaofeng carried the teddy bear all the way back, wanting to show it off to Qin Sini. In the end, just as Zhang Xiaofeng showed the teddy bear, Qin Sini bypassed him and went to Ling Yichen. Wow, did you really buy 10 sticks of candied haws for me? That's great. I'm so happy. Qin Sini grabbed the sticks of candied haws from Ling Yichen excitedly. It was not hard to tell from her expression that she was overjoyed. Holding the teddy bear, Zhang Xiaofeng watched as Qin Sini picked up a bunch of candied haws and peeled off one of the sticks excitedly to munch on it. She had only eaten one when Qin Sini suddenly turned to look at Yun Jian and asked Yun Jian, "Jian, do you want some?" "I've eaten." Yun Jian smiled faintly. "Then I'll eat," Qin Sini said and shook the stick of candied haws in her hand before swallowing them one bite at a time. The corner of Zhang Xiaofeng's mouth twitched. Was he completely ignored? After that, Zhang Xiaofeng continued wisely in order to regain his sense of presence on Qin Sini's side. "Yun Jian threw the teddy bear back to you with the darts just now. Jian's amazing. Give it to me, give it to me." Qin Sini exclaimed and took the candied haws she was eating out of her mouth before dashing over to snatch the teddy bear from Zhang Xiaofeng's arms. "My Jian is amazing." Qin Sini praised loudly as she spoke. Zhang Xiaofeng, who was standing aside, wanted to cry but had no tears. Why was his presence so insignificant in front of Qin Sini? "You're all back? Come and have some fruits. Sini, ask your friends to come and have some. The fruits I just cut are fresh." Xia came out of the kitchen with a big plate of pineapples and freshly washed strawberries when she saw that Yun Jian and the rest were back. "Okay." Qin Sini answered and led Yun Jian and the rest over. Other than Yun Jian and her friends' share, Xia had prepared everything. Not only did she have to entertain Yun Jian and her friends, but Qin Jinchuan's business friends as well. "Jian, try this. These are natural strawberries my mom planted in the orchard." Qin Sini led the group over and picked up a big red strawberry for Yun Jian as she spoke. Yun Jian smiled with her lips pressed together but accepted it. After that, Yun Jian passed the strawberry to Ce. "You eat it first." It was Yun Jian who gave her the strawberry. She would eat it no matter how much she disliked Ce. Moreover, Ce liked fruits quite a lot. Hence, Ce took the strawberry from Yun Jian. "Jian, take it yourselves. Don't be shy." Qin Sini said loudly and took a bite of the candied haws in her hand happily. "I'm sorry, who are you looking for? You can't go in here." The voice of Qin Sini's security guard rang from outside the door. Not long after that, the door was opened. "I'm going in to look for someone. I'll be right out." A pure American English voice rang out. The person who came in was tall and burly, standing over 1.9 meters tall. He spoke fluent English and charged in regardless of the obstruction. The poor security guard could not even converse with the person, nor could he stop him. When Yun Jian saw the person, however, there was a slight flicker in her eyes. Chapter 921. Yun Jian was not surprised to see Corentin. There was no need to ask how Corentin knew she was here. Yun Jian knew that it was a piece of cake for international bigwigs like him to find a specific address through a mobile phone. Yun Jian had called Corentin back then. She did not tell him her exact address, only giving the address of country Zhejiang province's Longmen city. However, Yun Jian knew that it was a piece of cake for Corentin to search for her exact location. Of course, the premise of all this was that Yun Jian did not object to Corentin searching for her exact location. If Yun Jian was unwilling, all she had to do was create an anti-hacking system to ensure that Corentin would not be able to find her. If Yun Jian really did that, Corentin would not be able to find her even if he got the hackers on the national hacker ranking to do it. Where are you? Where are you? Come out. Corentin looked around and yelled at the top of his lungs in pure American English. S was Corentin's abbreviation for Yun Jian's codename, an extract of SS. To Corentin, SS was abbreviated to S. However, with Corentin yelling and speaking in English, the security guard next to him was confused. He couldn't understand Corentin's words at all, but the security guard still held Corentin back and didn't let him in. Who is this? Why did he suddenly rush here? He's a foreigner, isn't he? Is he looking for someone? Wow, he's a foreigner. He looks really good. I wonder who knows this foreigner. Whoever knows him must be someone who's good at English too, right? A group of women gathered together and started chatting. However, what they said was the opinion of women. In the past, it was rare to see a foreigner, especially this group of ignorant women. Each of them stared at Corentin as though they had seen something strange. In this era or even earlier, if someone could go abroad and come back later, it was definitely something worth bragging about. Furthermore, these women didn't have much experience. All of them were people who had lived since the olden days. Therefore, when they saw Corentin, they were especially surprised. When Ji Shasha saw Corentin walk in, she immediately envied the person who knew Corentin. I wonder who this foreigner is looking for? Ji Shasha suddenly had the urge to flaunt her excellent English in front of everyone. Previously, she had heard that Yun Jian was good at shooting. Later, she saw that Yun Jian was so good at darts. Even her man was one of a kind. Needless to say, Ji Shasha almost died of envy. Ji Shasha's English was quite good, especially after hearing the foreigner speak a few sentences of pure American English. Ji Shasha was instantly full of confidence in herself. For a moment, Ji Shasha also wanted to show off her strength. Hello, who are you looking for? If you have any questions, I can help you. Ji Shasha walked over and asked Corentin in English in front of everyone. After that, she even winked and pretended to be cute. Wow, that's amazing. She can actually speak English? I wonder whose child she is. Yeah, she can even communicate with foreigners. That's amazing. Chapter 922. Ji Shasha's smile deepened when she heard the chattering praises of the women around her. This was exactly the effect she wanted. Ji Shasha felt very good about the fact that she could speak English while Yun Jian and the rest could only stand by and watch her foolishly. Finally, there was something she could use that was better than Yun Jian. This is my daughter, he. Isn't it just a few sentences in English? My child had a tutor every day to learn English when she was young. She didn't study seriously when she was young, so I was quite worried. But now, her English is pretty good and she can even communicate with foreigners. Oh, he. Looks like the child has to relax a little. She can learn by herself. One of the women with lipstick stains that resembled a chicken's but looked at Ji Shasha, who was talking to Corentin. Her head was almost raised to the sky. This woman was Ji Shasha's mother. She usually liked to dress up gorgeously and pretend to be a rich madam. Now that her daughter Ji Shasha had grown eyes in front of so many people, how could Ji Shasha's mother not boast? When this group of rich madams gathered together, they liked to boast about where they bought their perfumes and bags from and how they were more high-end than others. Now that they had children, there was no lack of women boasting. Ji Shasha's mother was a typical example. Ji Shasha was even more pleased with herself when she heard her mother's boasting. She looked at Corentin in front of her and waited for him to reply. Just as Ji Shasha was proudly raising her head and waiting for Corentin to reply to her to further show off her ability, a crisp and clear voice rang out. A crisp, bell-like female voice rang out. Old man, your skin has gotten thicker. Are you courting death? You speak English so fluently? These words were spoken in Chinese. When the people present suddenly heard such a crisp and beautiful female voice, they were all stunned. The most important thing was that this beautiful female voice was actually speaking in such a rude and vulgar tone. Even so, everyone present felt extremely comfortable when they heard it. Hearing this familiar tone, Corentin, who had ignored Ji Shasha just now, instantly turned his head. Ah, you really are here. At this moment, Corentin changed his emphasis on pure American English and spoke to Yun Jian in pure Mandarin. Corentin's Mandarin pronunciation was even more accurate than some of the native Z peoples. When Corentin saw Yun Jian, he sprinted to her in quick strides. Ji Shasha, who was standing in place, was dumbfounded. The group of gossipy women and noble women around them were also dumbfounded. Ji Shasha's mother, in particular, felt as if she had been slapped in the face. She stood there dumbfounded. Corentin knew Yunjian? But that was not the main point. Why did Corentin call Yunjian S? Just as everyone present was filled with doubts, Yunjian's voice rang out again. Is it fun to pretend that you can't speak Chinese? As she spoke, she raised her eyebrows slightly. Haha, it's not like that. Corentin was flustered by Yunjian's stare. After a while, he spoke humbly and childishly. A little? Corentin was a very playful old man. Corentin was not surprised by Yunjian's appearance. After all, slaying God used a different human skin mask every time she met someone in her previous life. She had never shown her real face to anyone. Therefore Corentin did not doubt this. Speaking of which, since you've called me here, does that mean you've agreed to take me in as your disciple? Corentin did not forget his purpose. He looked at Yunjian expectantly and raised his voice. Upon hearing Corentin's words, everyone's eyes widened in shock. What? Did they hear wrongly? Chapter 923. Corentin could speak Chinese, but he had been communicating in English. This was a little trick he played with the people present. That was not all. Corentin was a foreigner after all. Moreover, he was an old man who was tall and strong. In the end, he actually wanted to be Yunjian's disciple? What was so great about Yunjian that made Corentin beg to be her disciple? Everyone present was puzzled. However, just when everyone present was confused about the situation, Yunjian's voice sounded again. I need your help with something. Yunjian casually stated her purpose. However, before Yunjian could say what she needed his help with, Corentin agreed in an exaggerated manner. No problem. As long as you accept me as your disciple, I'll promise you anything. As he spoke as if to show his sincerity, Corentin even patted his sturdy chest in an exaggerated manner and promised, I'll give you all the honor you want from me, Corentin. To Corentin, the most precious thing he had was all the honors he had received in his life. The title of the world's top mechanic and so on. However, compared to being able to be Yunjian's disciple, this was nothing at all. Yunjian curled her lips slightly. This is my master. How can you snatch my master from me? Zhang Xiaofeng could not hold it in anymore. Now that he heard Corentin saying that he wanted Yunjian to accept him as her disciple, he immediately stood up to stop him. In fact, even if Zhang Xiaofeng did not stand up to stop him, Yunjian would not accept Corentin as her disciple. There was no need to ask why. She would not accept him. However, as soon as Zhang Xiaofeng finished his sentence, a slightly plump middle-aged man dressed as a businessman stepped forward and asked Corentin in surprise, Mr. Corentin, what do you mean by Mr. Corentin? Corentin? Are you Mr. Corentin, the top mechanic in Country M who once made international headlines and was hailed as the world's most outstanding mechanic? Zhang Xiaofeng, who had just accused Corentin of trying to steal his master, was confused by the middle-aged man's words. Then Zhang Xiaofeng suddenly reacted. He pointed at Corentin and stared at him in disbelief as he yelled, Hey Corentin! What, you're Corentin? M Nation's most outstanding mechanic, Mr. Corentin? I heard that the original price of a sports car that you've modified can soar from a few million to tens of millions. You're Mr. Corentin. Zhang Xiaofeng knew a thing or two about this, so when he found out that Corentin was America's top mechanic, he couldn't help but exclaim. After coming back to his senses, Zhang Xiaofeng realized that he had just accused Corentin of stealing his master in front of everyone. He actually dared to challenge the famous mechanic, Mr. Corentin, who was once approached by the President of America. Zhang Xiaofeng shuddered at the thought of it. Then Zhang Xiaofeng couldn't help but take 2 steps back. However, just as Zhang Xiaofeng took 2 steps back, Corentin suddenly stepped forward. Zhang Xiaofeng thought that Corentin was going to take revenge on him for yelling at him just now. He was so shocked that he twisted his ankle. Unexpectedly, Corentin rushed up first and grabbed Zhang Xiaofeng's hand passionately. Then Corentin looked at Zhang Xiaofeng with an admiring gaze and asked loudly, You're S's disciple? I've never heard of S taking in a disciple. You're actually S's junior. Please teach me how to become S's disciple. Corentin's excited look coupled with his exposed identity. Everyone present was stunned. Especially Ji Shasha and the others, their faces looked as if they had just eaten *T. Chapter 924. Seeing Corentin's actions, everyone present stood rooted to the ground in shock. Ji Shasha, who had wanted to use her ability to speak English to convince everyone present by talking to Corentin, was already dumbfounded. Who was Corentin? The plump middle-aged man dressed as a businessman, and Zhang Xiaofeng had already introduced him in detail. Even if one did not know Corentin's identity, one could roughly guess his identity. He was America's top mechanic and had even made international headlines as the most outstanding mechanic in the world. Just based on the fact that Corentin had appeared in the headlines of international newspapers, he was definitely not a nobody. After all, someone who could appear on the headlines of international newspapers was definitely not an ordinary person. However, no one present could have imagined that Zhang Xiaofeng had just yelled at Corentin like that. What about Corentin? In order to become Yun Jian's disciple, Corentin actually used such a polite tone to greet Zhang Xiaofeng? Zhang Xiaofeng was shocked by Corentin's behavior. In the end, it was Corentin who held him up. Zhang Xiaofeng did not expect his master to have such great influence. Not only did Corentin not run over to beat him up after hearing his words, but he even begged him to teach him how to be Yun Jian's disciple? A top mechanic in the world actually wanted to be Yun Jian's disciple? Zhang Xiaofeng instantly felt that he had gained a lot of face. After he steadied himself, he even put his fist to his mouth and coughed softly. It was as though he was pretending to be a big shot. After that, Zhang Xiaofeng stood on his tiptoes and patted Corentin's shoulder, who was half a head taller than him. Then he taught him proudly. You don't know how much effort I put in to become her disciple. I've used all my trump cards. Otherwise, my master wouldn't have accepted me. Do you want to learn? If you want to learn now. Zhang Xiaofeng, keep bragging. I can't blow you away. Just as Zhang Xiaofeng was proudly bragging, Qin Sini walked over, jumped up, and smashed Zhang Xiaofeng's head hard. Whoa! Zhang Xiaofeng roared after being hit in the head by Qin Sini. He's just spouting nonsense. Don't listen to him. Qin Sini said to Corentin as she pinched Zhang Xiaofeng's arm with a smile. Seeing Qin Sini treat Zhang Xiaofeng so rudely, Corentin was dumbfounded. He was stunned for a moment before he reacted. You Z people are so bold. Corentin forcefully swallowed the word rude back into his stomach. Corentin smiled at Qin Sini before turning back to Yun Jian. Just take me in. I'm very obedient. I'll even run errands for you. As he spoke, Corentin revealed a cute smile. You're an old man with half a foot in the coffin, yet you're still trying to act cute. It'll be strange if you don't scare people to death. The people around could not help but criticize him in their hearts. Yun Jian pursed her lips and smiled. Just as she was about to say something, the sound of a sports car drifting to a stop outside the door was heard again. As the guard uncle had stopped Corentin from entering and had chased him all the way here, there was no one guarding the door now. Now that they heard someone speeding in from outside the door, everyone present was stunned. Who's here again? Just as Yun Jian turned to the door, she saw a middle-aged man in a formal suit running into the house, looking rather down and out. After the middle-aged man ran in, he looked around and finally locked onto Qin Jinchuan. Under everyone's surprised gaze, he ran and knelt in front of Qin Jinchuan. Chapter 925. Just now, when they saw this man with a caliper running in from outside the house, the people present might have felt a little surprised. Who was this person? Why did he come here? No one knew him either, or someone would have called out to him the moment he entered. It was only when the man with a styled head rushed in and knelt before Qin Jinchuan as he shouted those words that the crowd suddenly recalled. Baiguang Model Agency was suddenly banned not long ago. As for why it was banned, it was said that Qin Jinchuan's daughter, Qin Sini, was almost tricked into taking a nude photo by Baiguang Model Agency's talent scout. Qin Sini was unwilling to do so, so these people tried to force her. In the end, Qin Sini was forced to commit suicide by smashing a vase to protect her innocence. It was said that she used the broken piece of the vase to cut open the pulse on her hand. If it were not for her friend who came to save her, Qin Sini would have been a cold corpse by now. As a father, how could Qin Jinchuan allow his daughter to be bullied like this? Today's banquet was held because Qin Sini had just been discharged from the hospital. In addition to what the man with a styled head said, it was not difficult for the crowd to figure out the cause and effect of the incident. The man with a styled head must be the director of Baiguang Model Agency, Qi Jinxing. Qi Jinxing founded Baiguang Model Agency single-handedly, but the crowd had heard quite a lot about him. Baiguang Model Agency was not clean to begin with. As the director of Baiguang Model Agency, Qi Jinxing must have infiltrated many female celebrities and models in the company. In spite of it, Baiguang Model Agency was quite successful. Not long ago, it was even named as the company with the most potential for development. In the end, it was because of Qin Sini's incident that Baiguang Model Agency was completely banned. Everyone had their suspicions, and now that Qi Jinxing was kneeling before Chen Jinchuan, their suspicions were confirmed. Baiguang Model Agency must have been banned by Chen Jinchuan. Haha Jinchuan, I've said it before. Who else in Longmen City has the ability to ban Baiguang Model Agency other than you? You're amazing. Zhang Guodong, who had been sucking up to Chen Jinchuan before, seized the opportunity to step forward. He didn't care that Baiguang Model Agency CEO Qi Jinxing was still there. He immediately praised Chen Jinchuan to the skies. With Zhang Guodong's words, the people present were more willing to believe that Chen Jinchuan had banned Baiguang Model Agency. Baiguang Model Agency was a huge company. Other than Chen Jinchuan, there was no one else in Longmen City who had the ability to ban Baiguang. Therefore, the surrounding people pointed and whispered, but the words of the surrounding people were all praising Chen Jinchuan to the skies. Qi Jinxing's appearance diverted the attention of those who had been paying attention to quarantine. Just when everyone thought so, Chen Jinchuan spoke to Qi Jinxing. Baiguang Model Agency wasn't shut out by me, but your company deserved it. With that, Chen Jinchuan kicked Qi Jinxing away. How could Chen Jinchuan accept Qi Jinxing's apology? Chen Jinchuan wanted nothing more than to destroy Baiguang Model Agency and make it disappear from this world forever. Just as Chen Jinchuan finished his words, Yun Jian continued, I've said that Baiguang Model Agency will become history. It's your fault for messing with someone you shouldn't have. Chapter 926. Chen Jinchuan's words just now made everyone even more puzzled. Why did Chen Jinchuan keep denying that he wasn't the one who banned Baiguang Model Agency? Just as everyone was thinking this, Yun Jian's sudden words shocked everyone, especially Qi Jinxing himself. Qi Jinxing didn't know who banned his Baiguang Model Agency. Qi Jinxing admitted that Baiguang Model Agency was his life's work. If it was destroyed because he offended someone important, his life would be ruined. However, the only person he could think of was Chen Jinchuan. But why would Chen Jinchuan deny that he was the one who banned Baiguang Model Agency? Instead, this little girl who was still wet behind her ears stood up and said, I said that Baiguang Model Agency will become history. Who told you to offend someone you shouldn't? To be honest, Qi Jinxing was also shocked. Why would this little girl stand up and say something like that? Who are you? Qi Jinxing asked, but he was still kneeling in front of Chen Jinchuan. After all, in Qi Jinxing's subconscious mind, Yun Jian who suddenly appeared was just a little kid. If there was anyone who had the ability to ban Baiguang Model Agency, other than Chen Jinchuan, there was no one else. Just as Qi Jinxing opened his mouth to ask Yun Jian, everyone turned to look at her. However, Yun Jian suddenly crossed her arms and sneered. Just as everyone felt the temperature drop, Yun Jian's voice rang out again. Didn't you want to beg me to let your company go? What? You can't even ask for help from the wrong person and you still want to protect your company? Yun Jian crossed her arms and nodded with a smile. Her tone was full of provocation and contempt. Everyone present couldn't help but gasp when they heard these words. You did it? You're the one who blacklisted Baiguang Model Agency? Qi Jinxing looked at Yun Jian in disbelief. Similarly, everyone looked at Yun Jian in shock. How could it be Yun Jian? Who did she think she was? Did she have the ability to ban Baiguang Model Agency? Qi Jinxing was not the only one who did not believe Yun Jian. Not many people there believed what she said. Ce who stood on the side blinked, a slight smirk on his handsome face. He did not make a move because he knew that his Xiao Jian had her own solution. Can you stop joking? Girl, I've been hearing you say that you're the one behind Baiguang Model Agency's incident and those scouts who lost their manhood. Can't you show me some evidence? Can't you stop making so much trouble? Who do you think you are? Do you think you're up to the heavens? It was not Zhang Guodong's first time hearing Yun Jian admit that she was the one who did it, so he was annoyed and was even more annoyed by what she said now. Just a girl's 8 S's the A's have. You're asking who S is? Corentin pointed at Yun Jian exaggeratedly before continuing in an even more exaggerated tone. What's this Baiguang Special Agency you're talking about? Do you know Rongyao Company, one of the top 10 international corporations? Chapter 927. Rongyao Company was one of the top 10 international multinational companies, and it enjoyed absolute power in the entire world. Even among the top 10 international multinational companies, Rongyao Company was at the top. Countless international businessmen and politicians were proud to be able to cooperate with Rongyao Company. Countless business elites or top students who graduated from major universities all over the world, and the top students among the top students, all fought to squeeze into Rongyao Company. Rongyao Company was an existence with absolute influence in the world. It was also Yun Jian's power in her previous life, and it was now under the control of Siren. When Yun Jian had just been reborn into the body of the original owner, the first time she went to an internet cafe after being reborn, she used hacking skills to invade Rongyao Company's system and stole a large sum of money from it. Stealing money from oneself, wasn't it referring to people like Yun Jian? Because the person in charge of Rongyao Company was Siren. Siren was Yun Jian's subordinate, and she was in charge of Rongyao Company for Yun Jian. Yun Jian herself was the boss of Rongyao Company, which meant that the founder of Rongyao Company was Yun Jian. The people present might not have heard of Country M's top mechanic, Corentin, but it was impossible for them not to have heard of Rongyao Company, one of the top 10 international multinational companies. It was an internationally famous company. Therefore, when everyone present heard Corentin's words, they all maintained their original stupefied actions and froze in place. That look was no different from a person who had been scared silly. Corentin spoke in Chinese just now, so everyone present could understand. But what did Corentin just say? Yun Jian was the boss of Rongyao Company, one of the top 10 international multinational companies? What kind of joke was this? How old was she? She was still underage, okay? She was about the same age as Chin Sini and was still a junior high school student. Everyone present was completely stunned. At the same time, everyone kept their mouths in the shape of an O. It was as if they were shocked by something and were completely unable to move. The existence of Rongyao Company, whether it was Baiguang Model Agency or Qin Jinchuan's company, was not even qualified to touch the Rongyao Company. It could be said that if Rong and Yao wanted to destroy Baiguang Model Agency or Qin Jinchuan's company, it would only take a phone call. Not to mention that the CEO of Rongyao Company had made a move. Most of the people present believed Corentin's words. Furthermore, Corentin's respect for Yun Jian and his insistence on becoming Yun Jian's disciple were all sorts of things. It could be concluded that if Yun Jian was not the CEO of Rongyao Company, why would the internationally renowned mechanic, Mr. Corentin, fly a helicopter all the way from Country M to become her disciple? However, after receiving this answer, everyone was unable to react for a while. Everyone was stunned. Especially Ji Shasha, who wanted to compare herself with Yun Jian, and Zhang Guodong, who verbally attacked Yun Jian. Both of their faces were pale as if they had seen a ghost. However, before everyone could react, Zhang Xiaofeng's incredulous voice rang in everyone's ears again. Oh my God, Master, you're the CEO of Rongyao Company? What about New Cruise? Aren't you the CEO of New Cruise? Zhang Xiaofeng's voice was very loud and clear, and it spread all over the place. However, when everyone heard Zhang Xiaofeng's voice, their expressions tensed up again. What? Chapter 928. Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Qin Sini had been learning from Zhang Jifan, who was managing New Cruise on behalf of Yun Jian for a long time now. Zhang Xiaofeng, Ling Yichen, and Ling Yichen would learn about managing a company from Zhang Jifan whenever it was time. They had heard a lot about Yun Jian from Zhang Jifan. How did Yun Jian lead Zhang Jifan and the rest from Xinjiang town to Longmen City back then? How did she take over New Cruise's storefront? How did she develop New Cruise to this stage? Zhang Xiaofeng had heard a lot about these from Zhang Jifan and was extremely impressed with Yun Jian back then. Now that he heard that Yun Jian was actually the boss of Rongyao Company, one of the top 10 international corporations, Zhang Xiaofeng nearly fainted from shock. It was because Yun Jian was the boss of New Cruise. She was so young, but she had done things that others could not achieve in their entire lives even when they were older. Although everyone present believed that Yun Jian was the boss of Rongyao Company and the director of New Cruise after listening to Corentin and Zhang Xiaofeng, they were still waiting for Yun Jian's answer. Therefore, they shifted their gaze to Yun Jian, waiting for her reaction. Yun Jian's gaze was trained on Zhang Xiaofeng. She pressed her lips together, her red lips curling up slightly. After a while, Yun Jian spoke. That's right. Rongyao Company and New Cruise are mine. She was not afraid of publicity. Of course, so what if she did not admit it? Corentin, the old man, and Zhang Xiaofeng, the young man, had already revealed it. Corentin, the old man, and Zhang Xiaofeng snickered when they saw Yun Jian admit it. Those who stood around, including Ling Yichen and Qin Sini, Qin Jinchuan and his wife Yixia, Zhang Guodong, and even Ji Shasha were all shocked. Not a single one of them was not surprised. At this moment, everyone's expression was the same. Of course, Ci was the exception. Ci was silent, watching the scene before her nonchalantly. So, Baiguang Model Agency is really you? Zhang Guodong was so regretful that his intestines were about to turn green. Once he recalled how he had treated Yun Jian just now, he shuddered in fear. Now that he had thought it through, he knew the truth. Yun Jian was New Cruise's director. However, no matter how regretful Zhang Guodong was, he dared not talk to Yun Jian. This was because Zhang Guodong knew that if he spoke to Yun Jian now, he would definitely die a horrible death. Just by looking at how Chen Sini was hurt by Baiguang Model Agency's talent scout and how Yun Jian had blacklisted Baiguang Model Agency, it was obvious that she was not a pushover. Considering the previous incident, no one present dared to talk to Yun Jian. In the end, no one dared to speak up until Yun Jian bade farewell to Chen Sini and the rest and returned home with Corentin and Ce. At this moment, Yun Jian had left the group of stunned people behind. However, Yun Jian did not return to Dong Ruan's house. Instead, she went straight to Gu Yunjian's house. This was because Yun Jian knew that Qin Yiru was at Gu Yunjian's house. However, she had a more important matter to attend to. Just as she arrived at the entrance of Gu Yunjian's house, Yun Jian saw a rather tall Gu Xian with a red, yellow, blue and green hairstyle standing at the entrance and looking into the distance. She did not know what he was looking at. Gu Xian only reacted when he saw Yun Jian and the other two approaching. You. Gu Xian looked at Yun Jian. Just as he was about to shout, he walked around Yun Jian and saw Corentin behind Yun Jian. Mr. Corentin. Gu Xian exclaimed in shock when he saw the person clearly. Then he shifted his gaze to Yun Jian. The shock in his heart could not be described with words. Yun Jian actually managed to invite Mr. Corentin here. Chapter 929. Gu Xian had always thought that Yun Jian's request for Corentin to remodel a Maserati sports car was just a joke from Yun Jian. Gu Xian had even forgotten about Yun Jian's claim that she knew how to remodel a sports car. After all, Yun Jian was so young. Perhaps due to her youthful vigor, Gu Xian did not take her words seriously. However, at this very moment when Gu Xian saw Corentin following Yun Jian in the direction of home, he was completely dumbfounded. Hey. Hello, young man. Just as Gu Xian looked at Corentin in surprise and shouted, Corentin was as lively as an old urchin. Instead, he took the lead and extended his hand to greet Gu Xian. And Mr. Corentin hello. Gu Xian was overwhelmed by the unexpected favor. He actually saw Corentin. Mr. Corentin was one of the top machinists in the world. Not to mention inviting Mr. Corentin all the way from Country M. Even if the son of a famous international figure went to Corentin's house, Corentin would not even bother with them. Not to mention helping someone remodel a sports car. That was something that did not exist at all. Therefore, the moment Gu Xian saw Corentin, he was beyond shocked. Astonishment and fear were just words to describe it. It was as though he had seen his idol. Gu Xian was completely stunned on the spot, unable to react. Old man, it shouldn't be difficult to remodel a Maserati sports car for my brother, right? Yun Jian walked beside Ce. She held Ce's arm and turned her head to speak to Corentin. Gu Xian almost shouted in surprise when he heard Yun Jian call Corentin old man. What kind of person was Corentin? Even in the entire international scene, he was one of the top existences. Countless people in the underworld only dared to address Corentin respectfully as Mr. or Master. But what about Yun Jian? She actually called Corentin an old man? Gu Xian also noticed that Yun Jian actually called him brother? Gu Xian suddenly felt the warmth of family love. Just a Maserati? How could that do? Tomorrow, I'll ask my assistant to send over the newly modified limited edition Bugatti Veyron from my warehouse. Corentin said generously. He looked like he was willing to do anything as long as Yun Jian was willing to accept him as a disciple. When Gu Xian heard this, his entire face froze. Was Mr. Corentin not said to be a very odd man? Gu Xian had seen Corentin's photo and brief introduction in some international newspapers before. According to the introduction, Corentin was a very eccentric person. But then again, who was like Corentin who would modify a car based on his mood even if you gave him money? But why was the rumored crafty and mean Corentin so obedient in front of Yun Jian? After all, he followed behind Yun Jian and said that it wasn't enough to modify a Maserati. He even rushed to send over the latest model of car that he had modified. Gu Xian was stunned, but at this moment he was very grateful to Yun Jian. He could finally own a new car that Mr. Corentin had specially modified. And it was a new car. Just as Gu Xian smiled comfortably, Corentin's voice sounded again. So, will you accept me as your disciple? If you accept me as your disciple, I'll send you all the cars in my laboratory. You can even take all my medals. I'll give you anything you want. Corentin pestered Yun Jian. However, after hearing Corentin's words, Gu Xian's smile instantly froze. The Mr. Corentin that he worshipped was actually begging to be Yun Jian's disciple. Chapter 930. This was Mr. Corentin. He was willing to exchange all his honor for Yun Jian to accept him as her disciple. Gu Xian was completely dumbfounded. He stood rooted to the ground in a daze. He thought that Yun Jian would definitely agree to Corentin's request. In the end, Yun Jian directly rejected Corentin. No. Gu Xian was stunned. He thought that a big shot like Corentin would definitely be infuriated by Yun Jian's rejection. As a matter of fact, Corentin was fuming as well. Just as he did so, Gu Xian saw him shaking his buttocks and looking at Yun Jian like an innocent child, exhaling and saying, "I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, I'm sorry. No. Accept me. I'll be very obedient. I'll even run errands for you. I'll do anything." Corentin's behavior gave Gu Xian goosebumps all over. An old man with one foot in the grave was shaking his buttocks and acting coquettishly in front of a young man. Just the thought of this scene sent shivers down one's spine. Corentin shook his buttocks and tried to reach out to grab Yun Jian's arm to further act coquettishly. Just as Corentin's hand reached out and before he could touch Yun Jian's arm, it was caught by an even more slender and well-defined hand. Siyi's clear, mellow male voice sounded resolutely. "Don't touch her." Other than him, he wouldn't allow any other person of the opposite sex to touch Yun Jian. Not even an old person of the opposite sex. Corentin was 1.9 meters tall, which made him slightly taller than Siyi. However, in front of Ce, Corentin's aura was completely lost. Ce was 1.85 meters tall, but in front of Ce, even if Corentin was slightly taller than Ce, he was no match for Ce. Therefore, in front of Ce, Corentin's aura was much lower. Corentin was even forced to lower his head by Ce's aura. Corentin even involuntarily withdrew his hand. Looking at this scene, Gu Xian's jaw almost dropped to the ground. In the end, they returned to Gu Yunjian's house amidst Qin Yiru's shouts. Because it was already very late, Qin Yiru tidied up Gu Yunjian's house chores. Then she gave some instructions to Gu Xian before returning home with Yun Jian and the others. Yun Jian asked Corentin to arrange his own accommodations and Gu Xian invited Corentin to stay at his place. Therefore, Corentin could be considered to be staying at Gu Xian's house. The next day was Sunday. As promised, Yun Jian had to study at night. When it was time for the evening self-study session, Zhang Xiaofeng had already returned to school. Zhang Xiaofeng had only applied for a week's leave, but Chen Sini would only be back after about a month. The following week passed by uneventfully. Yun Jian had been paying attention in class this week. She even completed the homework assigned by the teacher seriously. It was common for Yun Jian not to do her homework. Now that she had completed her homework and handed it in, the teachers in the office were extremely surprised. A week passed by quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was the day of the Qingming Festival holiday. The Qingming Festival was one of the most important traditional festivals in country Z. Therefore, most schools would have a 3-day holiday. This Thursday was the Qingming Festival, so school was dismissed on Wednesday afternoon. However, Yun Jian's school had to start their evening self-study session on Saturday night. On Wednesday of this week, Yun Jian, Zhang Xiaofeng, and Zhang Jian carried their school bags and walked out of the school gate. As soon as she walked out of the school gate, she saw Gu Xian standing across the road and waving at her. Chapter 931. Gu Xian had taken a long leave of absence this time. He would still return to study abroad after this, but he could stay at home for the next few days. Corentin's arrival especially made Gu Xian even more reluctant to return to school early. Moreover, ever since Yun Jian brought Corentin to Gu Xian that night, Gu Xian had been addressing Yun Jian as little sister. Although Gu Xian and Yun Jian were not blood-related at all, Yun Jian could tell that Gu Xian truly treated her as a little sister. Gu Xian was Gu Yunjian's biological son. Since Gu Xian could turn for the better, it meant that Qin Yiru could get along better with Gu Junjian after marrying Gu Junjian. In that case, why wouldn't Yun Jian be happy? Go. Yun Jian nodded. Then she paused and said, "I might be a little late tonight. You guys go ahead first." She had promised Ning Lanlan that she would go shopping tonight. Ning Lanlan was a student of foreign languages high school. However, Ning Lanlan was lively by nature. If it were other girls, they would have parted ways long ago after becoming friends with Yun Jian because they were not from the same school. However, Ning Lanlan would still look for Yun Jian when she was free. When they went to Nilong River for a barbecue last time, Ning Lanlan came to borrow salt. This time she lent a friend. Yun Jian also felt that she got along well with Ning Lanlan, so she did not refuse to go out with Ning Lanlan. "Okay. Guxian was overjoyed when he heard that Yun Jian would be coming. How could he refuse? Hence he agreed immediately. The more Guxian looked at Yun Jian, the more he liked his new little sister. Even Qin Yiru was pleasing to the eye. If Guxian was a little repulsed by Yun Jian and Qin Yiru's existence in the beginning, Guxian truly treated Yun Jian and Qin Yiru as his family from the bottom of his heart now. Guxian had come to the school to inform Yun Jian and was urged by his friend to drive to the only racing track in Longmen City right after he said that. Those who loved racing could naturally find a dedicated racetrack. Guxian had stayed in Longmen City for 2 days and was bored out of his wits when he could not touch a race car, so he went to Longmen City's racetrack. After Guxian left, Yun Jian went back to Dong Ruan's house and left her bag there before running out. She had not returned from Anhan. In the downtown area of Longmen City, Yun Jian met up with Ning Lanlan. Jian, you're here. Ning Lanlan was thrilled when she saw Yun Jian and hooked her arm around Yun Jian's. Come, let's walk around there. Ning Lanlan came to look for Yun Jian alone. She did not have any friends with her. Yun Jian nodded. There were quite a lot of downtown areas in Longmen City. Ning Lanlan dragged Yun Jian to wander around. When they passed by a mall just now, something black and flesh-colored flashed across their eyes. Wow, Jian, let's go check it out. Ning Lanlan pointed at a lingerie shop in the mall and ran in with Yun Jian in tow. Welcome. The attendant in the lingerie shop smiled at Ning Lanlan and Yun Jian in a friendly manner, looking like she wanted to follow them to introduce her store's products. We're just walking around on our own. You don't have to follow us. Ning Lanlan waved at the attendant. The attendant flashed her a friendly smile as well. When Ning Lanlan saw that the attendant really did not follow them, she pulled Yun Jian to a corner of the lingerie shop playfully. When Ning Lanlan saw that there was no one around, she picked out a piece that was so thin that it was almost transparent from the row of lingerie and stuffed it into Yun Jian's arms. Chapter 932. When Yun Jian was first brought into the lingerie shop by Ning Lanlan, she was still rather surprised. Why did shopping turn into a lingerie shop? It was only now that Yun Jian realized what was going on. This was what Ning Lanlan had in mind. She wanted her to buy sexy lingerie? After becoming friends with Ning Lanlan, the latter had been visiting her almost every day for the past week. Although school ended late, Ning Lanlan did not miss a single day. As long as CE was in Longmen City at night, he would come to her school to pick her up. It was not Ning Lanlan's first time seeing CE. Yun Jian did not think much about it before, but what was going on now? Ning Lanlan was hinting that she should wear this thin and transparent sexy lingerie to CE? Yun Jian felt that if she really did that, she might really be. What are you thinking about? Yun Jian said and shoved the sexy lingerie back onto the rack. Once Yun Jian thought about wearing this thin piece of clothing that looked no different from wearing nothing in front of C, but was she crazy? How could she be thinking about something like that? If the people around them took a closer look, they would be able to see that Yun Jian's cheeks were flushed with a faint blush. What? Ning Lanlan pulled Yun Jian's hand and shook it before running to the front desk with the lingerie that was hung back on the rack. I'll pay. Ning Lanlan paid before Yun Jian could reject her. The receptionist at the front desk looked at Ning Lanlan and Yun Jian with an odd gaze but settled the bill for Ning Lanlan in the end. In the end, even Yun Jian did not know how she ended up with the lingerie that Ning Lanlan bought. Ning Lanlan played with Yun Jian until 6 or 7 in the evening before she checked the time and was ready to go home. Before she left, Ning Lanlan stole a glance at Yun Jian and said with a grin, Jian, you must wear it. Try to pounce on him. You have to tell me how it feels when you're done. Ning Lanlan chuckled exaggeratedly and ran 2 steps away from Yun Jian while waving the bag in her hand. 2 steps later, Ning Lanlan remembered that she still had something to tell Yun Jian, so she skipped back to her again. Jian, I forgot to tell you. I'm going to the zoo for a spring outing with my friends tomorrow morning. If you're free, do you want to come with us? How about it? Lanlan asked and winked at Yun Jian. Ning Lanlan's invitation was sincere. Before Yun Jian could answer, Ning Lanlan agreed on her behalf skillfully. I'll take that as a yes then. You must come, we'll meet at the usual place. With that, Ning Lanlan skipped away without giving Yun Jian a chance to reject her. Yun Jian did not have anything to do the next morning. She stood where she was and watched Ning Lanlan skipping away. It was only when Ning Lanlan was out of sight that Yun Jian turned to go home. Holding the sexy lingerie in her hand, she felt a burning sensation in her hand. Of course she had to put it back home first. Just as she stepped into the house, she was greeted by Qin Yiru. Yun Jian called out, Mom? Xiaojian, have you eaten? I've put it in the pot for you. Go eat, Qin Yiru said and suddenly saw the big black bag in Yunjian's hand. Chapter 933. As Qin Yiru spoke, she habitually walked over and reached out to take the big black bag from Yunjian's hands. Usually, when Yunjian bought clothes, Qin Yiru would take the big bag that Yunjian brought back from shopping to have a look. Sometimes she would also touch the fabric to see if it was durable or not. People of the parents' generation had a hard time when they were young, especially Qin Yiru. Even though the family was rich now and bought clothes and other things, Qin Yiru still habitually reached out to touch the quality of the clothes, to see how long they could last, and to feel the texture of the clothes to see if they would pilling. Therefore, when she saw Yunjian come back with the big black bag, Qin Yiru habitually thought that Yunjian bought clothes. She also habitually reached out to take the big bag from Yunjian's hands, and then poured out the clothes inside to have a look. If it was in the past, Yunjian would definitely reach out the bag to Qin Yiru. However, the clothes in the bag were not normal clothes. How could she pass the clothes to Qin Yiru? If Qin Yiru saw the things in the bag, how could she explain it? Ahem, Mom, I just promised Guxian that I would go play with him. I will put the things upstairs first. As Yunjian spoke, she carried the big black bag and ran upstairs as fast as she could. This child, why are you running so fast? Mom is not the plague. Qin Yiru smiled with relief. From her expression, it could be seen that Qin Yiru did not suspect anything. After a while, Yunjian came downstairs, but Yunjian did not have the big black bag in her hands. Qin Yiru naturally did not suspect anything. Mom, I'm going out, Yunjian said and left the place. Hey, you have to worry about yourself going out in the middle of the night. Qin Yiru called after her. The night wind was chilly. Just as Yunjian stepped out of the house, she felt a gust of cold wind. Yunjian pulled her clothes together, not looking that cold. Longmen City, Yuanbao Mountain. Yuanbao Mountain was a racing track by the cliff of Longmen City. There were many racing tracks in Longmen City and Yuanbao Mountain was not necessarily the best one. However, Yuanbao Mountain was definitely the steepest mountain. The reason why countless racers chose to race at Ingot Mountain was because racing at Ingot Mountain was steep and exciting enough. Yuanbao Mountain was not filled with Yuanbao like its name, but it was undoubtedly one of the steepest mountains in Longmen City. What was racing? Wasn't the game just exciting? It was 7:30 in the evening, but the steep cliffs of Yuanbao Mountain were illuminated by bright lights. The racer's race was just the racer's race. Guxian was still standing where he was, checking his racing car with his two friends to see if it was fully equipped. This Maserati was recently remodeled by Corentin. Guxian was here today to see if this Maserati was good or not. Xian, it'll be our turn soon. One of Guxian's two friends said to Guxian. Guxian had brought 3 friends home this time. One of them was Xinjie, who was hospitalized after being beaten up by Yunjian. The other 2 were not bad. Guxian nodded and put on his helmet. Just as he put on his helmet, a group of people who looked more like hooligans than Guxian surrounded Guxian and his friends. The hooligan who stood at the front had a scar on his face, adding to his ferocity. Chapter 934. Guxian himself had dyed his hair red, yellow, blue and green. He looked no different from a local ruffian. His red, yellow, blue and green hair made Guxian look like a gangster. Therefore, when these gangsters surrounded Guxian, they treated Guxian as one of their own but from a different faction. When people of the same trade met each other, they would usually treat each other like enemies. Therefore, these gangsters who surrounded Guxian looked ferocious. One of Guxian's 2 friends was a foreigner while the other was from country Z. Including Guxian himself, there were only 3 of them. Guxian's eyelids twitched when he was surrounded by these people. The gangster who stood at the front had a scar on his face and a crew cut. He looked strange as well. Standing in front of Guxian, he was much shorter than Guxian. It was probably because he could only see Guxian's chin when he raised his head. This made the gangster with a scar on his face and a crew cut very dissatisfied. F***CK, how dare you look down on me? Do you know who I am? Do you know Falcon Hall in Longmen City? My big brother is one of the higher-ups in Falcon Hall. Who the F***CK do you think you are? How dare you look down on me? Men beat him until he's on his knees. The crew-cut hooligan opened his mouth very arrogantly to show off his power. We're new here and don't know the ways of the world. Please bear with us. Guxian was smart enough to speak up when he thought of this. If they were overseas, Guxian would have formed many gangs, but there were only 3 of them who came back this time. The best fighter, Xinjie, had already been sent to the hospital by Yunjian. There were only 3 of them left now. Guxian knew that it was useless to put on a brave front, so the best thing to do now was to make peace with these people who were obviously here to cause trouble. "Ha, at least you have a good eye." The crew-cut man sneered at Guxian. He looked up at Guxian, spitting saliva all over Guxian's face. Guxian knew that the other party had the advantage in numbers, so he could only swallow his resentment. "Next match, You're going to compete with our brother Guang, aren't you?" The crew-cut man finally got down to business. Before Guxian could say anything, the crew-cut man continued, "If you dare win our brother Guang in that match, don't think about leaving this place today. I'll make sure you won't be able to come back alive." The crew-cut guy threatened fiercely. As he spoke, the man with the crew-cut walked around Guxian and stopped in front of the Maserati. The crew-cut guy led a group of people to the front of the Maserati. He patted the sports car and said even more arrogantly, "Yo, this car is not bad, right? Lend it to our brother Guang, how about it?" He did not allow the other party to refute him. Guxian clenched his fists. He could not hold it in any longer. Screech. At this moment, a fiery red limited edition Ferrari sports car suddenly rushed up from the bottom of the hill. The sports car was like a gust of wind. Its speed was maximized and it arrived in front of the crowd at lightning speed. The crew-cut man and the others were stunned. Even Guxian was shocked. Whose car was this? How could it be so fast? It was twice as fast as Mr. Corentin's modified Maserati. In other words, it was 4 times better than an ordinary sports car. Guxian was also shocked. However, at this moment, the door of the Ferrari sports car opened and Yunjian stepped out of the car. She turned off the listening device installed in the Maserati sports car to eavesdrop on the conversation between Guxian and the hooligans. As soon as she got out of the car, Yunjian leaned lazily against the side of the Ferrari sports car. Looking at the hooligans, her eyes instantly turned cold. Chapter 935. From Yunjian's appearance to Yunjian's words to protect him, Guxian's heart was beating wildly. This was different from love and friendship. This was a form of protection from family. Guxian was not afraid to admit that at this moment, he felt tears welling up in his eyes. It felt as if his heart was suddenly hit by a warm wind. Guxian had never experienced such a feeling before. His eyes could not help but turn red. Even his biological mother had never protected him like this. Today Yunjian, his sister who was not related to him by blood, actually stood out to protect him. Because he was momentarily moved, Guxian did not even notice that Yunjian had said, "My Falcon Hall." Because Yunjian was young, the crew-cut guy and the rest did not even notice that Yunjian had said, "My Falcon Hall." However, it was undeniable that Yunjian's speed had indeed shocked the crew-cut guy and the rest for a while. However, when they thought about it and saw Yunjian's delicate and beautiful face, the crew-cut guy and the rest suddenly relaxed. Yo, where did this little girl come from? Why is she so pretty? The crew-cut guy whistled, then led his group of hooligans to Yunjian's side and surrounded Yunjian. "What are you doing?" Seeing this, Guxian forgot about his initial intention of showing weakness. Although it was obvious that Yunjian was very skilled when she beat up Xinjie, Guxian only treated Yunjian as a younger sister who should be protected. Guxian quickly rushed in front of Yunjian and blocked the crew-cut guy and the rest. "Haha kid, do you have a death wish?" The crew-cut guy cackled when he saw Guxian shielding Yunjian. These hooligans were notorious in Longmen City. They liked to tease pretty girls when they saw them and take them away by force when they got the chance. It was even common for them to rape a girl together. In spite of this, they were from Falcon Hall and the boss the crew-cut guy mentioned was a higher-up in Falcon Hall. Therefore, no one dared to stop them even when they were stirring up trouble. Clenching his fists, Guxian gritted his teeth and said, "You guys can take the car. Mr. Corentin modified it." Guxian loved the Maserati sports car that Corentin had modified, to the point that he loved it as much as his own life. If Yunjian had not shown up today, Guxian would not have handed over the car even if he had to fight these hooligans to the death. After all, Guxian's love for this Maserati exceeded his love for his own life because it was Corentin who had personally modified it. However, Yunjian had shown up today. Looking at the crew-cut guy and his gang, Guxian knew that they looked at Yunjian differently. Yunjian was skilled and had even entered her father's military training camp. However, no matter how good Yunjian was, she was only a girl. There were about a dozen people in the crew-cut guy's gang. How could they possibly be a match for them? Therefore, Guxian reluctantly gave up the car and would rather have the crew-cut guy drive the Maserati away to divert their attention from Yunjian before leaving with Yunjian. In short, the crew-cut guy and his gang must not turn their attention to Yunjian. Yo, Kid, you actually have a sports car modified by Mr. Corentin? The crew cut guy jumped in surprise and went to touch the Maserati. Chapter 936. The crew cut guy did temporarily shift his gaze from Yunjian to the Maserati, but it was only temporary. How could the crew cut guy let go of a girl's looks when they had taken a fancy to her? Sister, what are you talking about? Guxian was shocked by Yunjian's words. He quickly turned to the side and whispered to Yunjian in the softest voice. Guxian had learned a lot of martial arts, but he knew that he was no match for the crew cut guy, who was originally a hooligan and was good at fighting. He had not reached the level where he could take on more than 10 people. Moreover, a great man knew when to yield and when to stand tall. Originally, Guxian did not intend to tolerate being insulted to this extent. However, he had to tolerate it now. He still had Yunjian on his side. Moreover, wasn't it all because of Yunjian that Mr. Corentin could modify the Maserati sports car? Just based on this point, Guxian would protect Yunjian at all costs. It was because he was Yunjian's brother now too. However, while Guxian was doing this, the crew cut guy finally reacted to Yunjian's words. F***ck. How dare you say that my hands are dirty? The crew cut guy raised his voice. From the sudden ferocious expression on his face, it could be seen that he was really angry. Isn't it? Don't tell me you sprayed perfume on your hands? Yunjian did not mince her words at all. She then added, even if you sprayed perfume, your hands are still dirty. Just as Yunjian finished speaking, Guxian's other brother, who was standing beside him, could not help but laugh out loud. Seeing Yunjian's serious look and suddenly hearing Yunjian's black-bellied words, Guxian's brother could not help but laugh out loud. F***ck. Hearing what Yunjian and Guxian said, the flat-top guy got even angrier. I'm going to kill you, the man with the crew cut said. He raised his hand and wanted to rush over to give Yunjian a slap. However, before he could raise his hand, a hooligan with a crew cut ran out from the side of the path. Just as the crew cut guy was about to slap Yunjian, the hooligan pulled him back. He even whispered a few words into the crew cut guy's ear. Just as he said a few words, the crew cut man's expression changed. F***ck, count yourselves lucky. Kid, if you dare to beat my brother Guang later, you're dead meat. The crew cut guy didn't forget to say these words before he left. After that, the crew cut guy said to his brothers, let's go. With that, the group of people swaggered out of the place. Yunjian didn't stop her. In spite of it, Yunjian's gaze darkened. Since when did her Falcon Hall have such a piece of trash? Haha, it seemed like she had to get rid of them completely. Sister, are you okay? Once the crew cut guy and his gang left, Guxian was afraid that Yunjian would be frightened, so he turned to look at Yunjian. Yunjian shook her head slightly. Then she walked to her Ferrari and knocked on the hood of the Ferrari. She turned to Guxian and said, do you want to try this car of mine? It's twice as fast as Corentin's modified Maserati sports car. Twice as fast? Guxian exclaimed in surprise. After all, Corentin's modified Maserati sports car was already shocking enough. However, he had seen Yunjian's speed just now. Thinking of this, Guxian couldn't help but ask, which master modified this car? Who modified this car to be twice as fast as Master Corentin's modified car? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.